or Post Malone, you know.
All right, so we were just talking about Ozzy, and yeah, Bri, I think you've got a joke for us.
So, is this new album pre-Malone or post-Malone?
He.
Yes. Yes. Hey, and we have Carl.
Hey.
Carl, of course, he comes to all of the music events, and I know recently kind of has been homebound, so that it's good to see you here, buddy, rocking and rolling with us virtually.
Love you, Carl.
Yes, always. You are an amazing guy. Yeah, so stay tuned, stay with us. If you guys are in the chat room, of course, let us know you're here. Say hi. Hi. And we'll see your comments. And yeah, if you've got any questions for our guest, we'll be able to see those. Let us know. Because we also have the Gauntlet of Fire we're going to put Bri through. These are
favorite.
New questions.
I'm excited.
Yes, all new questions.
Not
we're
about
gonna
my stripper
ask.
name, right?
Nope,
We already know that
we
about
already
you.
know that. We're
You
gonna
do?
talk-
Because I forgot.
Don't know about you.
Yeah, good.
Well, we can still talk about it then.
All
We
right.
can. So let's get into it. Bri Foxx, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me again. It's always such a blast being on your
Yes.
show. It really is. I had so much fun.
Yes. And you are now a podcast master, I think.
How many
Podcast
times
master
is this
guest.
for you?
Oh, man.
Total?
So, let's see. I would say like 5. This is my
Nice.
5th podcast
Very
being
cool.
on. I
Right.
never really realized how fun podcasts were until I did my very first one.
Was that with me or was that with somebody else?
It was actually with Jesse Landers.
Okay.
And he's actually he's doing pretty good himself. He's actually looking for people to collaborate with. So like
Oh.
if you are a musician and you're looking to collaborate with someone, definitely hit up Jesse Landers. He has like this album project going on. And I'm on the
awesome.
album too.
Okay,
With the
cool.
song that I sang for him, I Can Be Yours, which is on Spotify. I put the link on my Facebook profile in case you guys, listeners, are wanting to listen to me sing heavy hair metal.
Good, we can go and hear it.
I love it. So I was gonna ask, what's new going on music for you, man? What are you doing right now?
Oh man, musically, ever since I've moved to Atlanta, I've had this musical awakening.
Now, real quick, you moved to Atlanta.
I did.
We gotta talk about that real quick because I feel like this was a new you. Like when you moved, where were you before and where are you now?
Okay, so I was in Norcross before. I was actually couch crashing with the last podcast that I was in with you, with the guest Wilson Bass. I was crashing with him. And he was nice enough to let me crash on his couch for about 9-10 months and
Nice.
until I got on my feet. And then this opportunity to move to Atlanta was just way too good to refuse. So
So you're in the West End now, right? Do you love it?
yeah, oh my gosh,
Yeah, I
I
bet.
absolutely love it.
You're near one of my favorite restaurants.
Yeah, the Slutty Vegan.
Go check that out.
I haven't been yet, but basically what happened is that Snoop Dogg came through town. He ate at the Slutty Vegan. He endorsed him a little bit. Now they have like, I think, 2 to 3 new locations
Wow. No, that's great.
just
man.
within the year. So
Snoop
it's
Dogg was really helpful.
it's good to see a small business like thrive through the coronavirus. It kind of
Yeah.
gives me hope, like that I can thrive through the
Oh, yeah.
coronavirus too.
Yeah, definitely. So, so obviously, shows not as much, but you've been playing still a little bit before kind of the season that we're in now.
Yeah.
But you've been writing new music, right? Doesn't you've got
Yes.
some new stuff out? So what you got? Talk to us about that.
So with the EP, we had to go through a process of reevaluating what exactly we wanted out of the music. So we basically went back into the studio, the After Dark studio with Donnie Hammonds, and we remastered and we remixed everything because we strive for perfection. So now all the music is done. We're just trying to determine a release date. Like all the artwork is done.
Awesome.
Everything is done. We just have to hit the go button.
Right.
And we want to release it at a time where it would be, I guess, of a joyous occasion. I would like to release it before we start doing live shows again, just so I can give y'all a taste of what we're about.
And build some momentum too, right?
Exactly. But this project is very close to my heart because I started it in a place where, like, I was at my lowest point in my life, and I turned my life around thanks to the members of this project. And so all these songs that are in this EP are like 3-4 years old. And so now, after we release this EP, we're actually writing an album. We're writing a concept album.
Nice.
Where it all tells a story and all the songs kind of interlink with each other. But we're trying to make it where each song can individually stand alone. And the lyrics I've been personally writing for the album, it's a much, I want to say, darker side of me.
Okay.
But not dark in the sense that it's negative. Dark in the side to where, like, if there are people that feel the same way that I do, I want to kind of show them that they're not alone. Like, like in this new album that we're writing, a couple of the songs, like, talks about mental health and, like, and issues with being a woman in the rock scene too, kind of like marching to the beat of my own drum
All
and
things we should
being
talk about.
able to not be held back and not have to be put in a box because I'm a woman.
Right, and you also get the put it in the box because of maybe your figure or how you come across and or your hair or you know what I mean. Like, like I feel like you get that a lot too. Where people, you see that you walk into a room and then there's this immediate she must do this, or she must play that kind of music, and or she's gonna be loud or like whatever.
Exactly.
And so I think there's a lot of that. I think it's getting better.
It is getting better, and you know, I've made a lot of mistakes in my youth, and I'm sorry if my mistakes might have kind of intimidated some people or anyone, but rest assure you, the person that I am is a person that cares about music, cares about people, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're alone.
That's very well said.
What would be like the one thing you'd want to say to all the fans or anybody that's out there right now that's listening?
I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Sometimes I slosh around a little too much. Sometimes I get a little bit too excitable. I'm kind of like a puppy, and like society is the leash, and like I'm trying to go everywhere at once because I smell all the smells. But really, I'm just excited to be alive, and I'm excited to make music and give people a sense of hope through my music. I want to change, do positive things with my music.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Awesome. So has sort of talking about like being a woman in music and sort of breaking some of the bounds as far as the gender bounds, but also there's the genre boundaries. Trying to break through those.
Sure.
Has any of kind of what's gone on with the with COVID in general? You talked a little bit about how some of the songs are a little bit darker, more emotional, talking about sort of isolation and themes of mental illnesses. Was that from sort of what was going on with COVID, or was that something that was already kind of there? I mean, how has COVID like essentially influenced you, if it has at all?
That is a great question. I would have to say it's a little bit of both. So I often hear lyrics with melody in my head. The first thing I do is I take out my phone and I write them down and I put them in the notes. And I can always go back to the notes if I have to. But like when I'm actually sitting down and writing a song, sometimes I remember little pieces of the notes and then they kind of weave together. And
do they change a little bit at that point sometimes from when you originally wrote them down?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, you know, some of the things might be a little bit too explicit for the commercial audience, and of course, you know, although I respect a niche market, I want to be able to appeal to the masses also through making change. And so like some of the lyrics that I have written down might not necessarily be appropriate per se children. So I want to like make it into a way to where like I can turn my thoughts and my feelings. Maybe I'm just really having a bad day, and all I read is like, oh, I hate the world, and like I could always change that into, the world is really sad today, but I feel okay somehow in my own special way. Like,
trying to kind of go into. I feel like it's like trying to take a light and lead, like into something, into a new realm, a new world, hopefully,
Yeah, and the most amazing thing about this project that I'm in is that we have multiple songwriters. And so
Very awesome.
it's not just going to be my lyrics that's going to be heard in this album we're making. We have a song called Cannon Fodder that Will Bass actually wrote, and it's really good. I don't want to spill the details, but he has a really particular way with words that would appeal to a lot of people. And Hart Deer is also in my band, and he's just an amazing artist and amazing person to work with too.
Keyboardist, right? Yep.
And he actually wrote a couple songs and has a little melodies that I'm encouraging for him to incorporate in the band. And then Z, our drummer, he writes too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You have that many songwriters. Like,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dream project because, like, people see the front man and I feel like I get way too much credit sometimes as a front man because it's the band that makes the front man. Without the band, I'd just be some hysterical woman on stage rolling around like a roly-poly-oly.
Yes. Well, so, I mean, you're known for being on stage and just being out there, and just really owning it. But I know that sometimes comes off to people in the wrong way.
Yeah.
That happens. What do you say about that to people? Maybe criticize that, or what's kind of behind that, and would you ever change?
I just have to say, if you're a listener and if you have a problem, or not necessarily a problem, like have a critique or like something that you would like to see differently in my personal performance, I am always open. You can message me through Bri Foxx Music. If you're friends with me through Facebook, you can message me through Bri Foxx, and I will be happy to talk to you and happy to be able to share my philosophy. And my philosophy goes as follows. I don't hold back. And the reason why I don't hold back was because I was held back a lot through my childhood. I'm very open about my autism, and I was basically told I would never talk and I would never be self-sufficient. And it's kind of making me tear up a little bit. I would never be able to do the things that I've done, and like some of the things that I've done on stage just goes beyond my wildest dreams. If I saw myself as a little girl, and that little girl, I used to daydream in school about being on stage and doing the things that I do or I would do pre-COVID. And honestly, like, it's been very hard. And I really stress mental health awareness because I feel like it's been really hard for a lot of musicians. A lot of musicians have, I feel like, can empathize with the fact that, we
it's
used
a lot
to
of
anger and sadness
and frustration. I feel
and
like
just
it's
knowing that
almost-
you don't quite fit, and then I mean,
Well, it's
even if
like-
you don't want to, it doesn't matter. You still don't.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's also like you can't do much about it. Like, to me, that's the frustrating part. It's like, so you can't wave a wand and then everything is the concerts are back in full force and you're doing your job finally and you're back at it full time and whatnot. I mean, so that's where it was interesting because back in February, March, April, May, we're like, we're going to be out of this by the summer. Yeah, we're still in it, and then we saw by the end of the year, we're going to be done and out of it, and we're still here. And so I think that's where it's like just the ongoing frustration of that. And so one of the things that I always wonder is like, how's that affecting I think it'd be interesting to see how this affects what comes out moving forward.
We're going to have a whole new renaissance.
It's very interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, about how some of this actually, and some of the things, again, that the musicians out there that are doing to keep us sane through 2020, how that's actually helped encourage sort of a renaissance back to not only the whole power behind rock and metal. So it's having a resurgence, which is very interesting. I never saw that coming, but there we go. But also how that's going to color the next generation, the next songwriters, whatever how we're gonna consume music and how we're gonna write music. I don't know. Yes.
I feel like because, in a sense, with COVID, I think that there were for me personally, there were two different sides of COVID to me. For me, it was when I was living in Norcross and when I was living and now that I'm living in Atlanta.
Yeah.
When I was living in Norcross, I was a lot more like secluded. It was kind of the height. And so I wrote my song, or our song, Blind Eyes, based off of somebody that I saw that actually had coronavirus. And I actually wanted to date her, but like it never really worked out. But like I still admired the person that she became to be, and like she overcame so much, and like seeing her in the hospital with like these piercing blue teary eyes, it just immediately I wrote a song about it. We recorded it, and then I moved to Atlanta, and now like I actually live with a really good keyboardist. I'm gonna refrain from saying his name due to privacy reasons, but he is absolutely phenomenal, and I've been jamming with him a lot. And he has introduced me to a plethora of musicians. Of course, we follow COVID guidelines. We social distance, and we make sure, and we take COVID very seriously. But when it works out, I feel myself just spilling out these words that like I never thought I could imagine. And so in a sense, it's a positive spin. It's a very blunt spin. Like, like I'm just like a woman at the Claremont Lounge who's lived the best life. That's what these jams are like. They're very bluesy and groovy. Oh, yeah. And then they like can take weird twists and turns and turn like punk and metal. And personally for me, I've been discovering that I have an interest in singing like the really harder genres.
Cool.
And you never know, man.
I'm having that punk voice. I know, just even jamming with you probably a couple times, I have that.
I know
really
you've had
voice.
You have a lot of pride in a lot of the sort of the higher falsetto stuff. So
it just makes me feel so happy.
So to hear you saying you're kind of going a little heavier, man, that makes me feel. I mean, that just makes my heart go. I love that. So trying to expand out vocally, I mean, it's what we got to do. Is there any like new artists or bands right now that you're like that is like really influencing me, or that's my jam?
Well, I've been listening to a lot of the Gorillaz, their new album. I think it's called like The Sound Machine. Oh my god, I recently became their top fan on Facebook, and I have a badge.
You got the badge.
I have a top fan badge, and everybody can see my comments.
By the way, if y'all want badges, I've got badges here on the Sonisphere podcast.
I want a badge.
Yeah,
we
all want badges. Badges are cool.
I've been listening to an independent artist called Oliver Tree. And Oliver Tree, he's kind of a mashup of everything. So, like, his music, like, he sings hardcore, but it's more, like, kind of poppy R&B, but it's the music videos. Like, he wears these flare pants, and he wears this jacket that's, like, blue or, that's pink and purple, and he just like there's one video of him where he just like messes up the entire scene, and I just when I saw that and
how does he mess it up?
Because he looks all crazy.
Oh no, he literally takes a plethora of weapons and mashes picture frames, takes a chainsaw, he's cutting up couches, and then like there's a shot of him just like running around with blood on his face, just trying to escape, like it's presumably there are people chasing him. And when I saw that, just something inside me awoke. And it's not necessarily like a heavier genre of music, but
Yeah.
by watching somebody just be completely vulnerable and just mess shit up. Oh,
The emotions expressed. Yeah.
excuse me. Sorry
That's
about
awesome.
that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So,
I get so passionate. My apologies.
So,
everyone.
do you feel like so a lot of artists have, because we can't tour. I think there's been more emphasis on putting visual content out, videos, music
Yeah.
videos. Do you agree with that? I mean, are you seeing has that having that visual component, has that made a difference or changed anything for you?
Well, I'm going to put it in teaching terms because, like, I used to be a teacher and a career past ago, I wanted to teach children. And one thing that I learned in college is that we all have different ways of perceiving information. You know, some of us are visual learners.
That's the truth.
Some of us are auditory learners, and some of us are kinesthetic learners. And for those of you who don't know what kinesthetic means,
Touchy, feely.
yeah,
feely.
you have to physically do something.
I'm that way.
So-
I understand that.
Touchy. Don't eat the Play-Doh though.
Don't.
It doesn't
yeah.
taste good. You don't want
mean, you
it.
can,
It's-
Especially
but-
the glue, it'll give you bad poops.
Ugh.
But
Oh, well, okay, real
But yeah,
quick. I have to
so
say real quick.
visually
So
it
there
can
was
make an
this thing
impact.
you can buy real quick. Pri, I'm
Oh,
not to cut you
gosh.
off, but I was speaking of eating the Play-Doh. You can buy, you can buy this thing now where it's like a full kitchen and you can make like donuts out of like Play-Doh. I mean, they look so real and you can put the sprinkles on it and everything. And I'm like, how are kids not eating Play-Doh after this?
Oh, they're
I mean, it was
eating
like,
it. They're
it
eating
is it
looked
like fondant?
Yeah, no, it's like Play-Doh. You make it with Play-Doh, but it's like
But it looks like a real
kitchen. It's like
bakery
a
product.
full kitchen, but it looks it's like you
But
can
That's
buy
a lawsuit waiting to happen.
You can buy
Somebody
It's
needs to
probably
get fired
already
in their
happened.
marketing
I don't know,
team.
I was just
Someone's
like,
already probably in trouble
Oh
know, man.
gosh.
because kids are eating the Play-Doh. I'm sure they are.
dude, there's gonna be like Play-Doh donuts, flavored. Like I think Play-Doh's gonna have their own flavor. I think that's what they're going for. Anyways, all right, keep going.
In about 15 years, there's gonna be Play-Doh beer.
lordy.
Or maybe there's gonna be like a crisis where plumbing is horrible because there's just like Play-Doh, just like in the
Probably.
Oh man, I don't know, dude. But see, once you make all that stuff, then you can't like do anything with it. I don't know, man. Play-Doh's so weird.
You gotta squish it up and
But
make more.
it's real. Like, look at that commercial,
Do it all
man.
over
It's-
again and again.
I mean,
and
it's
over
like
and
a
over and over again.
hamburger. It looks just like a ham. It's really crazy. It's like really pretty and looks delicious
Until you bite it.
Shouldn't be delicious looking. I don't know.
That would be a crazy thing for like food marketing companies.
Oh, what do you have to tell kids? Don't put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
They don't
Where's
say
it gonna
anything
go?
about that
Seriously.
on the bottom. It doesn't. I don't even think they care. I think they're just like eat the Play-Doh.
We've been around since the 60s.
And nobody's died yet.
Yeah.
Talk about old school.
all right. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh man, what was I talking about
So,
again?
all right, well, you're in Atlanta now. So,
Oh,
what do
yes.
you like about Atlanta? What is like the thing now that you're like, this is my home. This is where I'm like, I'm alive here.
First of all, the skyline. You just cannot.
Is it
beat that.
inspirational to you when you get up in the morning and look at it?
Oh my goodness, yes. Like especially
It's pretty.
when I work in Norcross, so when I would come back from work, and even though I'm sitting in Atlanta traffic and I'm frustrated and nothing's going anywhere, it just gives me time to just look up at these tall buildings. It just reminds me of fairy tales when you would see all these castles, and but instead of castles, it's buildings, and instead of singing to the mice and the animals, you're singing to
The building.
the buildings and the occasional homeless man or two.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I absolutely love. I have a very, very deep place in my heart for the homeless population in Atlanta. I think that
Now, but you've done stuff for that, right? You've volunteered.
I have. I've donated water. I've donated food. Back during the protests when Rashard Brooks, R.I.P. I went to that not McDonald's. I went
The
to that
Wendy's.
Wendy's the very next day, just on a whim, because I was staying with actually that still you see the photographer Cynthia Carr. I was staying with her, and I was supposed to pick up breakfast, and 4 hours later, I'm still at that scene, and it just really shook me up inside, and so I just started violently cleaning everything, and I just started putting things in piles, and then there was a cleaning crew that came up, and I told them all I had done. I drove to the Dollar Tree, and I got $50 worth of flowers and I basically set them on the ground. And it was so beautiful to just see so many people of the community just picking up these flowers, and they made this beautiful memorial when it was still there. And personally, I feel like I would love to see more done for these people, because there are things that are just not addressed, and
Forgotten. They're almost like forgotten.
it breaks my heart when I can't donate $1 when I happen to be driving past or just being next to somebody who is less fortunate than me. I always happen to have cigarettes, so the least I can do is give them a smoke or two. So I always want to have like something I give. That's why I like when I am out like in downtown, I typically have a surplus of cigarettes, because even though I might not have cash in the moment, at least I can give them something if I'm like out and about. And the stories, like some of the people of the homeless population, like I have heard these amazing stories, and a lot of veterans, and all I want to do is give them a big hug, but I can't, because COVID. But I just, you always gotta.
Well, you're doing a lot of that too through your music too. Sort of like putting that into your music and your lyrics, and like hopefully, we'll figure our shit out for next year. And,
It's in the works.
Hopefully with positive things on the horizon that we can start really caring about each other and start doing stuff.
Well, personally, what I would like to do is I would like to definitely, when the years, like when COVID kind of subsides, I would like to do like fundraiser shows.
Nice.
Cool.
And donate to like the Salvation Army of Atlanta, and for BLM too.
Right.
And so they can continue all the good work that they're doing.
Okay.
And basically to any charity in my local town that I live in that I can. And then eventually when I become more successful, I would like to donate towards bigger scale things.
Right.
But right now I'm just doing my part and doing what I can to help the people around me, because I'm not Wonder Woman. But I will be someday.
You sure?
Wonder Woman!
Yeah. That's right. I don't know. I think you might be a little Wonder Woman there.
Getting there.
Yes.
I'm a superhero in training.
So,
Okay.
So speaking of, we got one last question for you, of course.
Yeah.
Kind of, this is a two-parter. The first part being like, what are you looking forward to most for 2020? Speaking of sort of looking in the future and looking out there, 2021, what are you looking forward to most for next year?
Oh, crystal ball. What am I looking for the most of all? Let me see.
Well, we never know for sure, but
What was that question again? I got so caught up in the
said,
crystal
what are you
ball.
looking forward
So
to?
what are you looking forward to, either in your music or maybe in your life next year, or like in the sort of near future as well? Like, what are things you're excited about that are on the horizon?
I'm excited about pitching my music to Sumerian Records.
Nice. That's a good label.
I am looking forward to doing more collaborating with other bands and being able to do house shows, because I have that ability now.
Nice.
Because I have the space, and so I was thinking of putting on a couple
Cool.
different house shows. I'm looking forward to writing this album with my band, who are my best friends. We're like a giant family, and a family isn't perfect, but we all love each other. And I'm looking forward to creating more. And not just with music. I like to create art. I like to make jewelry. I like to sew. And I like to...
Nice.
I don't know what else I like.
Well, that's a pretty big
I
list.
like to
Plenty of
do
stuff.
all
I mean,
the things that I can.
That's great. It's a big list. Awesome. So if let's say COVID is no issue and money is no issue, what would be like your dream show or your dream lineup or your dream tour?
Dream show locally, I would love to open for Starbenders. Absolutely. I think that whole entire band, like all the 4 members of that band, are people that I can relate to, and I feel like we would create an awesome show with them. Lineup, I would love to work with Sarah and the Safe Word and collab with them too, and like do a show with them. I would also like to do a show where it's like female fronted bands. It's like a female fronted rock festival.
Yes.
And not it being a genre because, hey, guess what? Female fronted is not a genre. Get it through your head.
There you go.
But, and as far as the future touring, I would like to start locally first. So, like, regionally, like Tennessee, the Virginias, the Carolinas, and I would eventually like to make my way up north to New York, and then from New York just kind of shoot the arrow and go straight to California, passing through all the other states in the way, like a wave, because I feel like if I can impress people in New York, I can they have connections in LA, and then it's
hard.
just
That's
New York's
true.
a hard market, man. LA's a hard market too. Both super saturated and really hard to get out there and stand
But that's
out.
what I like about it, because
But-
it's challenging, but I feel like I can do it if I just...
I will say that New York, not as much, at least in my experience, but LA definitely people love and appreciate the music, and especially original music and local music more than a lot of the other cities around and whatnot that I've played, at least. So that's really refreshing. That's super nice. And LA is one of my favorite cities by far. I love LA. I love going out there.
I've always wanted to go to Hollywood and sit on a star and drink a shot of gin. That's like
There
a
you
bucket list
go.
of mine.
There
You can
go.
do that. I mean, no one's gonna stop you. It's fine. It's totally acceptable.
I need the funds.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yes,
There you
eventually.
go. So make sure you guys go find Bri Foxx, and of course, Toxic Foxtrot is the band.
Yes.
And put into that fun for them to go out to LA so that Bri can sit on a Hollywood star and
Drink her shot of
her
what
shot of
type
gin.
of gin?
It's going to be the worst kind of gin that everybody gives me flack for, but I don't care. I like my Taka.
All right.
All right, there you go. So it's the Taka Fund.
All right.
So yeah, make sure you guys go find the music. It's out there. Where can they find you, Bri? Where's your music? Where's everything right now?
So right now I have one song released that I did with Jesse Landers. You can find it. And after this podcast, I'm going to share it, the link further. It's I Can Be Yours. And then we are going to have a date set. I am looking towards I would love January 1st tentatively, but definitely within the first 2 weeks of January. I know I've been saying that forever. Oh, we're gonna have a release. It's just it's so much more difficult. It's just having everybody and making sure that you're releasing the right product. And we had to do re-edits.
Timing.
So
I mean, all market timing. There's so many things goes
Yeah.
into all of that for sure. All right. Well, we look forward to that. There's more music coming up, obviously, as well from you guys and from Bri. So we look forward to all of that. I've got
Thanks.
some of the stuff down here as far as links, but make sure that you will have some more for you guys as well, where you can find her and the band. So we have the Gauntlet of Fire that we have to do. Yeah, because we're in the second half of the first half. How about that? Second half of the first half. That's how it goes. All right. So
Gauntlet of
you guys out
Fire.
there, of course, in our chat book. There you go. Somebody create that chat book out there in our chat book right now.
Chat book.
But you guys can participate as well in your questions, in these answers, and you guys can give us your answers to these. So yeah, so we've opened it up. Look at us. We're big kids now. All right. So the first question, like I said, is let's go ahead and remember your stripper name real quick. We will do that. So
It was
first, it was the name of your pet, your first pet.
if anybody can remember my stripper name, I will cash up you $5.
There you go. There you go. So we're going to wait on that. We'll wait to the end of this and see if anybody comes up
The
with
cash
that. If you guys
prize is
remember what that is.
$5, which will be $4.75 to you if you do it instantly.
There you go. All right, so we're going to hold off on that. So let's get into our questions. And these are brand new. Some of them never been asked before, and some of them you have never been asked. All right.
So I'm answering these questions, right?
You are
Yes.
answering.
Oh, I'm in the
That's what
hot
you're
seat.
answering.
Okay, so
Oh.
what planet do you like best and why?
Actually, funny thing. So, tonight, if you look at the sky, Jupiter and Saturn
I
are
saw
aligned.
it on the way over here. Isn't it pretty?
Yes,
Yeah.
my favorite. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So, I'm like not a typical person to think about my favorite things because I love all the things. I'm like Mr. Peanut Butter off of BoJack Horseman. But my favorite planet is Saturn. Because, well, I saw a picture that somebody made. It's a realistic picture of what it would look like if Earth had Saturn's rings.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
it's just this beautiful skyline, and then you just have like the rings around it. And so my favorite planet is Saturn.
Saturn.
Was this a
Interesting.
depiction of what you would see from being like on the ground in Earth and looking up if we had
Yes.
rings?
Okay.
Oh, very cool.
Just being on the ground and just looking up, like you look
and
up
seeing
at the
that
sun.
asteroid belt and seeing that every
It's
day.
interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so Saturn has a lot to do with science and sort of exploration and understanding things, but it's also the great weigher. It tends to weigh people's lives and what they've done good and what they've done bad.
Oh gosh, it kind of goes with Santa. Have I been naughty or nice? Has Saturn been weighing good or bad?
So interesting enough. But yeah, there's some cool stuff right now going on celestially out there. So y'all, if you know, there's a bunch of different other podcasts. So shout out to some of those. Space Nuts is really cool, and they talk about a lot of this stuff. So go check it out. But there's also Drew Stallwin has he did a close up of Saturn getting close, and you can actually see the rings of Saturn in his photo.
So
So
cool.
it was very cool. So go check it out. There's lots of cool things to do that. But okay, so we're talking about other planets and being out in space.
Yes.
All right. So if you were an alien, what power or strange appendage or like property would you want to have? Like you could say you want a tail or flippers or whatever, but you can also have a power. So what would that be?
I want the ability to sing in all frequencies.
Oh, okay.
To where like no matter what species of being you are, like I'll be able to sing. And the crazy thing is like the higher in the frequencies you go, like I have this crazy thought, like what if we could actually see color through sound? And so if you were to go
Some people
into
can.
higher
yes,
frequencies,
that's the thing.
they are different colors, and so somehow like
You're able to see that.
you know, you can see through your ears, and I feel like that might be a thing with different extraterrestrial beings.
So they have like there's like, you know, you can see the ultraviolet range.
Yeah.
So that a couple animals here on Earth have that. So you could see that, but I think it'd be cool to be able to see all the colors, maybe being able to see the entire spectrum. I don't know. Maybe
For
it's-
me-
Some people have what's
yeah.
called synesthesia, where they really do
That's a
associate
beautiful
both.
thing.
Yeah.
Isn't there like an artist that does that? He has like a little gadget on his head, and he like sees colors through, or
Oh.
hears colors and sees them in his head through this
yeah,
gadget. I forgot
possibly.
his
Yeah,
name.
if you guys will have to look that up. But I don't doubt that. Alrighty. So awesome. Okay. So speaking of planets and sort of nature.
Ew.
All right. What is your favorite part of nature? What do you really?
My favorite part of nature is the fact that my presence is significant to the life that flows under my feet and above my head. And all of these things around me have been there way long before I was born and will probably still be there, granted, if humanity doesn't turn them into McMansions. It's just the sense of vulnerability. I've done a lot of meditation in nature. I've gone on a lot of nature walks, and like my personal favorite spot is the Roswell Mill. I love their
Oh, cool.
waterfall. And it's just kind of this sense of like, you know, eventually when we die, we turn into nature.
Yeah.
like whether we are cremated or whether we become trees, or there's even some ways where we can become a part of the Great Reef. Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Great Barrier Reef?
There's the
You can.
where your ashes, you can get them sent off, and they make you part of this, basically where they will anchor sponges and coral onto this
your remains, so you
this
can
mass.
become part of the reef.
I mean,
And,
talk
yeah,
about the circle
so-
of life as
Which
you're
is
going
needed,
there.
actually, because the reef's been diminishing. So if you feel like you want to make a donation at the end of your life, it goes to a good
Yeah.
cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a cool idea. There's a couple other ones. There's other ones where they'll plant a tree, and then the whole tree like basically gets moved and then planted, but you're like in the tree.
I personally,
really
that
crazy.
would be my ideal way to go.
Yeah, it's really crazy. There's lots of cool things. There's some basically the idea is to make the body biodegradable quicker and to go back into nature quicker. And so there's a lot of this. There's a couple coffin companies now that are popping up that are completely have some really cool ideas about coffins and how to bury people and how we deal with that. It's interesting. Well,
Yeah.
let's get off of the burying people
Yeah.
thing, and let's talk about the holidays, because we're here in the holiday, of
Sure.
course. So what's a holiday that doesn't exist but you would love to create it?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I need to grasp that question again. Could you repeat it for me?
So right now, if there's a holiday that you would like to create that doesn't currently exist, what would it be?
So I create the holiday.
You create the holiday.
Something that you want to celebrate. Either
Right.
it's your favorite time of year, but it's not celebrated, or a certain aspect of life that's not celebrated, and you can make a holiday for it.
I would like to make a holiday where... Ah, man, you know what?
I stumped her.
You got too many favorite things. That's the
Woo.
problem.
I have a hard time with favorite things. I maybe like a Humanity Day,
Okay.
where like everybody, like in the holiday, in the spirits, you do one nice thing. It
Sort
could
of
be
like a pay it forward day.
yeah,
forward
like
day,
it might not be like the biggest thing. It's like a Christmas but without capitalism. So you give one nice thing. You do one nice thing for one nice person, like in need.
Yeah.
And like we
Very
just
cool.
give a part of ourselves onto that day, because if that was a holiday, that could potentially change lives, because then like people would plan for that and it would be good for charities and organizations, and like,
Good day of
you know,
giving.
some people will be like, oh, I donated to this charity, so I did good on the giving day. Not like
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, but like actually like doing one nice thing. You could like make a card, or you can like paint your mother's toenails, or like you can give $1 to a person that you feel like you need it. Or
Pet a kitty cat.
yeah,
I love
like
that
pay
because
it
it doesn't have
forward
to
day.
cost anything.
Yeah.
But it's
Exactly.
Something
a
that doesn't
kindness
cost,
towards
yeah.
somebody who normally wouldn't have had that kindness.
Kindness Day.
There you go. Kindest day. All right. Awesome. Well, that's a good one. All right. So I have a new question, never been asked. I'm going to ask you this one. All right. So,
Yeah.
what would you have already died of if you had been born in the Middle Ages?
Probably that mad dancing disease.
So we're not talking about mad cow disease.
No, there is actually
This is like
a documented phenomenon in the Middle Ages where there is this whole town, and they were infected with this virus that ate at the brain,
Oh,
and
wow.
people would just dance, and they would just like flange their bodies around, and they would just dance until
Dancing zombies?
wow.
in a sense, yeah,
Alright,
and then they would
alright.
just like fall to the ground. I feel like that would be me, but like instead I'd be rolling around like
mean, it's
drinking
pretty
mead,
exotic.
like
Dance until you drop dead.
doth
pretty
Bri
exotic.
Fox, doth breathe foxeth. Just like dancing around.
Helleth, are you what the helleth does da do's?
Exactly.
What the hell art thou doing?
Art thou doeth the dance of the
All
dothness.
right.
Okay, I
Okay,
think I pushed
so-
it a little bit too
All
far.
right, no,
there.
that's fine. So what would be the worst? Buy one get one sale of all time?
Dildos.
I don't know, dude. Really?
Definitely.
That was a very fast answer. I love that.
I mean, that was the quickest one out of all. Of
I mean,
them.
I mean, that can just cause trouble.
She didn't even take a breath. She gave her answer.
And that just causes trouble because, like, you buy one for yourself and then, like, who else are you going to give it to? Like, oh, Merry Christmas, here's a thing.
I would have said Big Macs. The first one's horrible for you in the first place. Why do you need two?
What was it? Bibs?
Big Macs.
Oh, Big Mac. I thought you said bibs. I was like, okay. All right. Okay. So if money was no issue and they can be dead or alive, what band would you have over for a barbecue party in your backyard?
Definitely. What band? I would say 2 women, Janis Joplin and Amy Winehouse.
Oh, man, that would be a crazy
Wow.
party. I don't know, man.
If I could even handle that, but
Yeah.
awesome.
And, like,
Yeah.
we would just go wild.
Yeah, you would.
Oh,
You'd have
yes.
to.
Yes, definitely Janis Joplin and Amy Winehouse. Like,
Might
I
be
would just
alright.
love
The
to have a
the
like
mad
I would
dancing
cook
disease.
the barbecue. I'd put some skin on Amy's bones, and Janice would probably be over there,
That just
like
sounds
drinking
dirty
Southern
and
Comfort, and
hot.
I'd be drinking the
don't
Southern
know.
Comfort with her, and it would just be over all I got time.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. All right. Okay, well, speaking of doing bad things, rock stars doing bad things. to
Yeah,
each other.
yeah.
Okay. So we're going to talk about your criminal syndicate.
Oh God.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
So,
no.
you've embarked on a life of crime. What's the first thing that you would want to steal? So it could be like a car, could be a famous painting.
Tampons.
You would steal a bunch of tampons, like a
Yeah.
whole bunch of tampons,
Like
or like
the tampon factory.
or like a tampon out of somebody.
Oh man.
I mean, so where are we
Man,
going
that
with
would be a story. In other days' news, there is a tampon thief. Watch your panties, close your legs. Here
I
is
mean,
the
I'm just
tampon
saying.
grappler.
I mean, it can go either way.
I'm totally kidding, by the way. Totally kidding.
I am too. Don't do that.
I guess I would.
Now, this is your criminal syndicate. You're starting your business. This is going to be like your thing.
So there are actual doomsday shops.
Yeah.
I would kick the owner out of the doomsday shop and live off of the supplies, and then make my own cult and live off of the land.
Okay.
So
Alright.
you would just
Okay.
commandeer someone's doomsday stockpile.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we didn't go into the zombie version of this, but that's okay. Alrighty. So what would your hideout be, or where would it be?
Well, if I told you guys my hideout, and if the apocalypse happened, then everybody would be flooding me. So I plead the fifth.
Okay.
She doesn't want anybody piling in on her, like when the day comes.
All right. So
Probably a cave, maybe like an underground bunker, and like I have a holographic, like Sean Connery, like going Trebek. Oh, and then he'd call me Trebek, and we'd have a good old time.
Alrighty. So, speaking of that, we have to come up with a. What would you call yourself? What's your criminal mastermind name?
I feel like if I called myself a name, it would be easy to remember. So I'd have to basically go by a system of digital characters. So it'll be like $ SAR at hashtag.
Oh my.
That way, if people really wanted to find me, they wouldn't know my name. They'd just know me off of the character symbols. But now that you guys know my secret, unhear it. Unhear it at once.
You just said a wide array of symbols and letters
Yeah.
and stuff. So we're good. All right. So because it's rotating, right?
Yeah.
All right. So of course, every mastermind has to have a sidekick pet.
Oh my goodness. I love
What
animals.
pet would you have as your sidekick?
Let me stew on this one for a minute. It would have to be a.
Kind of like the sassy bird. I don't know. Like talk
It would be
back to me.
George Clooney.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Not even an
just
animal.
a wild
no,
George
he is
Clooney.
an animal. George Clooney is not
Yep,
here with us
he would
anymore,
be my
so-
pet. Yes.
So would it be
George
a
Clooney.
zombie George Clooney?
No, he doesn't have to be zombified, but if he wants to, that's on him.
What would his nickname be?
Clooners.
Goodness.
Clooners, come here. Clooners. Please
that
fetch me
doesn't
a,
sound right, Bri.
Table wine.
That
Clooners.
doesn't sound right. Wow, we went down some holes in this one. All right. Alrighty, so we got a few questions left here before we take a break and we get into the second half because it's getting really dirty, man. We are sloshing through the sewers on this
Didn't
one.
take long.
That didn't take long. All right, so let's ask about the sewers. There's a little creature down there that lives in the sewers.
Is it magic?
No, it's what I did 10 minutes ago.
Oh man.
I'm just
So what do you think? What do you think the definition of a rat licker is, Bri?
A rat licker?
Yep.
I would just think it would be slang for toilet wine.
Okay, that's a new one. I don't think we've had the toilet wine yet, but okay. All right. So, again, I will leave you guys out there to figure out what that actually means. We will not tell. We will not tell. We will keep our mouths shut. Alrighty. All right. So, I think I need to do quarantine houses with you because this could get really crazy. All right. So, choose your... The beer went down the wrong pipe.
Careful.
Oh,
in
no.
You made me
C'est
laugh.
la vie.
I know, you made me laugh about this quarantine house that's coming up question. All right.
Oh, Lord.
All right. Choose your quarantine house, Bri. You can either be in house number 1 that's got cocaine, hookers, and Gary Busey.
That's it. This house number 1. I don't
That's
even want
it.
to hear number 2.
All right. So number 2, a very popular house, is going to be shrooms, a bunch of Legos, and Johnny Depp. Very
Definitely
popular,
number 1.
popular house. Number 3, marijuana brownies, the Nintendo Wii, or Betty White.
Definitely number 1. What am
Number
I going
one.
to do with Betty White?
All
We're
right,
going to talk about
number
Golden Girls? Like,
four.
You're gonna play Nintendo.
Wait, you might want number 4. Number 4 is alcohol, Trivial Pursuit, and Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. Oh, man. Could I, swap out people?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
You have to choose your house. What house will you be in? There's no sorting hat here.
Wait, what was number
you
1
must
again?
choose it. Number 1 is cocaine, hookers, and Gary Busey.
Oh, well, then, yeah, it's just a giant party. And, I can always get those hookers to fetch me other things if I need it. I'm just kidding. I have respect for
So
the
are
hooker
we
community.
still in number
So-
1?
Yep.
All right.
If only Sean Connery
I
would
know.
just, come to his senses and come to my house.
I know. Well,
Trebek.
maybe. If you have the superpower to turn him into a zombie pet, that might happen. Alrighty, so guys, everybody, that wraps up our Gauntlet of Fire. So how about that? New questions for you guys.
Fire! Gauntlet of fire! It's a gauntlet of fire, my boy. Never felt no war. Woo, gauntlet of fire! Woo, gauntlet of fire! My booties never felt so warm.
So if we have a theme song, we're gonna
That's
have
it.
to get Bri to come do a theme song for
Every
the
week.
Gauntlet of Fire.
I am
So we'll do
on
that
it.
Every
Yes.
week.
Every
Yes.
week. We'll have it. We'll plug
Or
it in.
We can record it and then you can play it every week.
Yes, that's
Record
what I'm
it
saying.
yet, so you're
So
gonna come
we're
back at
gonna
least
do
one more
that.
time.
Gauntlet of fire!
There you go. I love it. All right, so you guys don't go anywhere. We are going to have a whole second half to all of this business. We are, of course, going to go to the old school of rock and roll with Julie 2. It's going to take us through what happened this week in music history. All the big things, all the anniversaries of the albums anniversaries, the big events, and, of course, remembering some of our past rock stars. We are going to pause the music for you guys, and we're going to take a look at what's going on this week, right now. New music, new things, new news, everything that's going on that you might have missed because you're too distracted. Well, we're going to keep you updated.
Sorry,
That's what we
guys.
do. And we have lots of good news, lots of good things to talk about. I'm very excited about. Of course, we are going to talk about some of the things that us, all of our musician people that we love and adore, and rock stars out there who made us forget that we didn't have concerts. So we're going to talk about that and some of the new things that has changed the music industry. And finally, of course, we're going to talk about what the new COVID relief bill. What does that mean for my fellow rock stars out there, and what does that mean for you guys that love live music and concert goers and all the the venues and all this stuff? We're going to get into all of that. So don't go anywhere. Of course, you're in podcast land. We will literally be right back.
And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Second half of
everyone.
the Sonic Sphere podcast, episode 34. We are here to salute some rock and roll, and we're going to talk about some rock and roll history. Julie, too, what do you got for us?
Well, I guess we can start with one of the original rock stars. We're going to celebrate Beethoven today because he
Nice.
was born in 1770, long time ago in a land far away in Bonn, Germany. He was part of a musical family, a tad bit dysfunctional, probably lended to his art, but a musical family nonetheless. They recognized his talent by the age of 20 and packed him up to go study with Joseph Haydn in Vienna.
Oh, no.
Beethoven is one of the most significant and influential composers, hands down, in Western art and music tradition. He was a groundbreaker pretty much in every sense of the term. He oversaw the transition of music from the classical style, which was full of poise and composure and balance and all of that, to the romantic style, which was bigger, sweeping sounds characterized by emotion and impact instead.
Right.
His symphonies were louder, and they were longer, and they were more exciting than anything that had ever been done hitherto.
That's right. A
And
little
that
bit
same-
louder, a little bit bigger.
Pushing that envelope, bigger,
right.
louder.
That's right.
And that same feeling of exploration in life on the edge shows through all of his other works later on in his career. Much of his music enjoyed great popularity. Actually, he was a working musician. He was able to live off of commissions and performances in Vienna.
Right. I have to say, both of us classically trained, and me with cello and you with violin.
Yes.
I think by far Beethoven was one of my favorites.
Beethoven 6 was the first thing to strike me, actually. I think.
One of my favorite symphonies to play of all time is a lot of the Beethoven, and he did a lot for cello. Actually
Absolutely.
wrote a
I
lot
love
for
the cello.
which there wasn't much. Kind of the cello was not really regarded.
Not
that
until, not,
highly
not until
until
Vivaldi,
later.
really.
Yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
So it was kind of an accompaniment instrument, and to the violin.
And they looked different than to the bows or actual bows, and you would hold
Yeah.
your cello like this, and you wouldn't have as much of a range, and they didn't have as many.
Yeah,
but Beethoven
so-
started to change that.
He did, and so a lot of there's some amazing things, especially around the holidays. He wrote also some of the best holiday music. some
Oh,
of
the
best-
joy being one.
Yeah. So we have a lot to give thanks to Beethoven for.
A lot of his music enjoyed great popularity. His Moonlight Sonata, for instance. Even at the time, that was a big hit. He made a lot of money off of sheet music sales. He was a modern day rock star. When people heard his music, they wanted to buy the music and go home and play it themselves. That's how people entertained themselves. They would have parties and sit around and play music at home, and they wanted to play Beethoven because he was just that cool.
That's right.
But his more exploratory works would puzzle players and audiences alike, like his final string quartets. Unfortunately, by 1798, he was only 28 years old. He noticed that his hearing was diminishing. At first, it started at the higher range, that he couldn't hear certain sounds, and then it got progressively worse. And socializing and performing publicly became very difficult for him. Actually, if you visit the British Online Library, you can see copies of a notebook. We talked about chat book earlier.
Chapbook, yeah.
Beethoven had a chat book.
Chatbook.
So when people come to call on him at his apartment in Vienna, the way he would socialize is he would have a blank book sitting on the coffee table, the tea table, I guess, and they would write their portion of the conversation to Beethoven, and he would answer, and then they would write their next portion of the conversation. So you can read it. Unfortunately, the conversations are one-sided because he would answer verbally.
Oh.
But he would answer verbally, but he couldn't hear his guest, so he would have to read whatever it was that they wanted to say to him or ask him.
Wow, it was that bad. It had gotten that bad. Interesting. Yeah.
But he learned that as best he could to control his volume and just kind of conduct himself in a way that you wouldn't know that he was basically deaf.
All that rock and roll, son.
Yeah.
It'll make you go deaf.
And his hearing loss was so bad at the end of his one of the last performances that he conducted publicly was his Ninth Symphony, of course. The applause was thunderous. You probably could have heard it all over town. He had no idea. His concert master had to get up out of his chair and come tap him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I think you need to turn around and take a bow."
Wow, I didn't know it actually had gotten that bad.
He had no idea. He could not hear this thunderous audience behind him. He had to be told to turn around and take a bow. Brilliant man. He has given us 722 works over his 45-year career.
Yeah, definitely. Prolific.
Another great. This year, in 1892, Tchaikovsky premiered The Nutcracker in St. Petersburg. Very, very fun one to play, I think.
Yeah.
Trepak was one of the first things, a first challenging piece that I took on as a kid on violin. And of course, we know that was set to a 2-act ballet performance, which is the depiction of a family's Christmas Eve celebration, which we're all pretty familiar with.
Right, yeah.
Still, today.
Still, yeah. For sure.
We also this week get to commemorate the first singer to broadcast on radio. This happened in 1907, done by a lady called Eugenia Farrar. She sang from the USS Dolphin and was docked at Brooklyn Navy Yard. She was a concert and opera singer at the time, and she was invited to the lab of Lita Forrest, who we know was working on the Audion tube, and we also with Marconi call him the father of radio.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to test his new radio, the ARC radio telephone as he was calling it at the time. So Farrar performed 2 selections for him, including I Love You Truly and Just a Wearying for You. And the transmission was successfully received by civil engineers on the deck of the USS Dolphin from Lita Forrest Lab in New York City. And that really is our first radio broadcast of a musical performance, actually, a singer's performance live.
Was it, do you know what it was? Was it like opera?
Those 2 selections of the I'm a Wearying for You, those were more jazz standards at the time. She did not write them, but they were popular. Just a couple of years later, did you know that it was in 1909 that humanity began its love affair with plastic?
Yeah. And the rest is history. And here we go.
Bakelite resin was patented. Bakelite is a material based on
yeah.
thermosetting. It's a phenol formaldehyde type resin, and it was developed in a lab during this time and patented in 1909 by the Belgian-American chemist Leo Baekeland, which got its name. It named after himself, Bakelite. It was the first plastic made from synthetic components. It was used because it was electrically non-conductive, meaning it was safe, and heat-resistant. And it was first popular in radio and telescope casings and electrical insulators. And was also used in products that we still use plastics for, like kitchenware and jewelry and pipe stems and children's toys.
And radios.
It was the world's first synthetic plastic. It's not only extensively used for general consumer products at the time. So, due to its cost and its complexity, it kind of went down. But at the time, it was the very first available thing.
Well, it's not as durable as our current plastic.
It can shatter more easily. It was the only thing there available at the time, and so it gave people the idea to use plastic for everything: saxophone mouthpieces, cameras, solid body electric guitars, even.
Yeah.
Some musicians said that Bakelite guitars had a really nice tone until it tipped off the case and shattered and to the floor, which would really suck.
Imagine, and they wasn't cheap either. Imagine buying a guitar and then having it
going
shatter in a case. Oh my goodness, that would be a nightmare.
But actually, you can YouTube what a Bakelite guitar sounded like. They actually have a nice tone. Really strange. Rotary dial telephones, even machine gun parts and things like that, and appliance casings. It was even considered at one time to be used for the manufacture of coins when the metal standards started to fall.
Oh, that's crazy! Imagine if we had
and until zinc was considered, we've had plastic money.
Right.
Which I wouldn't have been surprised.
It was the early monopoly money.
But where would we be without it? Because it's a hard, non-conductive material that we need in our everyday lives, and we wouldn't have dials and even your pick guards are made out of plastic. So
yeah,
everything.
Yeah, I wonder if the those little plastic picks sometime have sort of that brown, black, splotchy like look to them, which reminds me of what Bakelite, a lot of the early Bakelite looks like. I wonder if
I
that's
think
where
probably
the
so, because
influence
Bakelite
came from.
was used in children's toys because it could absorb any color, and so
Yeah.
like it was kind of a novelty at the time. And I think absolutely that's why it still looks like it does.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
1954 this year, Bill Haley and his Comets released "Shake, Rattle, and Roll,"
That's right. Shake,
and it became the
rattle,
first rock song, ever to hit the UK chart.
rattle, and roll. Yeah.
So that was a pretty exciting week, 1954,
First rock song. That's
to hit the
interesting.
UK charts.
Okay.
1963, a disc jockey by the name of James Carroll at WWDC in Washington, D.C. became the first DJ to broadcast a Beatles record on American radio.
Oh.
I don't think he was supposed to do it. He might have gotten in some trouble. But Carroll played "I Want to Hold Your Hand," which he had obtained from his girlfriend, who was a stewardess, and she brought the single back from the UK.
Oh wow.
She obtained it on a
So-
flight from a passenger, and she brought it to her boyfriend. Hey, get a load of this, and he played it on the radio.
So was it just that we hadn't heard of the Beatles really at that point, or was it that they were kind of just not allowed on radio?
They had not been on the radio yet. They just had not crossed the pond.
Okay.
And so he just threw it on the radio one day during his shift, and due to listener demand, the song was played daily every hour.
Wow.
Every day,
I
24
bet.
hours a day.
And I bet that started the whole craze, man. The Beatle craze.
Yeah, but since it hadn't been released in the States yet, Capitol Records, and it was about money, initially considered court action, but it was so popular instead, they just released it early. So,
Wow. Yeah. Well, there you go. Go with the flow.
1971, David Bowie released his fourth album, Hunky Dory. I love it, don't you? Which was the first to feature all the members of the band that would later become known as Ziggy Stardust, Spiders from Mars.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Which I love the name. Spiders from Mars.
Of course, and that's where we get changes. Andy Warhol. It was released in the U.S. in '73, and Bowie himself still considers the album to be his favorite and most important in his own career. Just to
Yeah.
give you an idea.
Wow. Yeah. That's cool.
A little later in the '70s, former James Gang and Barnstorm guitarist Joe Walsh officially replaced Bernie Leadon in the Eagles. After their producer Bill Schex had recommended Walsh to the Eagles after the falling out with their former guitar player, and where would we be without Joe Walsh? So,
Yeah. Wow. There you go.
did you know where the title for "Walk This Way" came from?
Walk this way.
Aerosmith.
I actually knew this at one time, but I do not remember.
So in 1974, they took a break and went to the movies, and Young Frankenstein was opening in theaters, so they went and
Young
saw it.
Frankenstein.
When they were taking a break from writing toys in the attic, and they went to the movies, and they kind of just giggled and laughed uncontrollably at the scene where Eager tells Dr. Frankenstein to walk this way.
Okay.
Remember, Gene Wilder was Dr.
Gotcha.
Frankenstein at the time.
Okay.
And the doctor imitates Eager's walk. In returning to the studio, they just had the title to the track they'd been working on, and everything else kind of fell into place.
That's
There you go.
awesome.
The rest is history, as they say. That's one of my more favorite songs, of course. And then
I love it.
Yeah,
Walk
that's
this way.
yeah.
Walk
I mean,
this way.
Aerosmith's got some good stuff, though. I
But
actually
where did "Give Me a Kiss" come from?
I don't know.
let us know out there in chat land. I got Mark Cook over here. I think he might know a little bit about that, of course.
probably
Hi, Mark
does.
Cook.
Hello, Mark Cook. Yes, I love the Beatles, Mark Cook.
He knows that you do. He's just poking you so hard right now.
I love the Beatles too. My dream boy is Paul McCartney.
There you go.
Ooh.
There you go.
So did you know the synth actually originated in the mid-70s? Fairlight CMI was the first computer musical instrument, or what we know now as a synth, and it was patented in 1975. Kim Reary Reary was a teenager at the idea and had this idea to develop a do-it-yourself analog synth to be called an ETI.
Yep.
Is it Kim?
A boy named Kim,
Okay.
Australian boy.
That is still so awesome.
Yeah. So his family owned a magazine called Electronics Today in Australia, in Sydney, where he lived, and he was getting kind of annoyed by the limited number of sounds that the analog device of the day could make. So him and his classmate Peter Vogel, the one that we know, just after they got out of high school, had got together and started talking about making the world's most effective synthesizer. Based on the recent development of the microprocessor, which was very new at the time. Whoa. So we're talking about combining technologies to make something. They really had this great idea in their head, and they're going to meld this all together and make this thing. And Peter
in the
Vogel,
garage. Or
So
in the
is the
basement.
synthesizer-
his
like-
grandmother's attic. So it's called a Fairlight because they
There you
lived
go.
in Sydney, and they could look across the bay, and the name of the ferry ship was called Fairlight. And they would be working late at night and see the ship coming across with the lights on, and they decided, we'll just call it a Fairlight.
Was it big or small? Was it like a compact synthesizer, or was it like a grand scale, and then eventually
It would take up the top of your desk.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say
It was pretty large,
big.
but
You
I
can
mean,
see photos
computer
of it.
microprocessing
Yeah.
was not that micro in the 70s
Yeah.
at all, by any means. It was for them, but not for us now.
that's beautiful.
He said later in an interview, Kim Marie did, we had long been interested in computers. I built my first computer when I was 12.
Yeah.
And it was obvious to me that combining digital technology with music was the way to go.
Yeah. The
Was
So-
that you or you made a computer at 12?
No. Kim Marie
Oh.
and Peter Vogel started
Wish I
working
made
on
a computer
computers
at
when they were
12.
like
That'd be great.
12, 13 years old.
Yeah, I know.
So technically, they're like the Bill Gates of music.
Basically. So after about 6 months, the pair actually met with a Motorola consultant by the name of Tony First.
Good old Motorola phones.
Uh-huh.
The bricks.
And after meeting with him and talking about digital synthesizer technologies and possibilities, the 8-bit Motorola 6800 microprocessor had become available. And the idea was to use a light pen and some of the graphics that were available at the time to become a part of an interface for the first Fairlight CMI.
Yeah.
At the time, the technology was limited, and the Fairlight CMI was only able to create exact harmonic partials, so a little bit limited, and sounded kind of sterile and maybe not what they wanted. But technology was advancing a little more rapidly at this time.
So were they at least able to do a harmonic third,
Yes,
but not a harmonic fifth? Like
No.
they weren't able to do like a triad,
no,
but they could do like a a first to a third.
not yes, but the fifth wouldn't happen at one time. Do you see what I'm saying? Like they couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay. But the Fairlight Series 2 was on its way after that 8-bit processor was available, and now more doors were opened.
Yep. And then that went into a lot of the video games stuff.
And at that time,
came out.
a 16 MG of RAM was available, and they adapted to have a keyboard interface like your regular QWERTY keyboard we have in front of us right now.
What time was this? Like what year?
So this started in 75. This process wrapped up in like 81 and 82.
So that was like around the uprise of Mario and Atari products, right?
Well, Mario's much
Yes,
later, so Atari
later.
would have been a lot earlier.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Actually,
just to-
Commodore would have been even before that. So
That's
Just to
so
give you an
interesting.
idea, the first major artist to own one of these Fairlight CMIs was Peter Gabriel.
nice.
Um,
I
to-
bet if somebody's got that in
cool.
their basement, don't throw it out, man.
Oh,
It's probably
millions
worth
of
a lot.
dollars, millions of dollars.
Don't throw it out.
After that, Yes, Jeff Downs of Yes and Stevie Wonder were also some of the first two major
Yeah.
musicians to incorporate the Fairlight CMI in their
Stevie
music.
Wonder?
Stevie took one on tour with him to support his album Stevie Wonder's Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants, and it was used also on Yes's 1980 album Drama. So the boys were pretty successful in their venture, I would say, and basically all of the modern synths that came after that and the major heavy music you hear in the 80s came from these earlier ideas in the 70s.
That is awesome.
All right. Yes.
I guess that goes to show if you are in a state in this COVID pandemic and you have an idea like that,
Work on it.
just go for it.
Make it, work it on it, develop it.
Exactly. Because,
Experiment.
like, even though these people were, like, in the 70s and in the past, like, they went with their idea and they changed the world. And if you have an idea, your idea could also change the world. You never know where your life can take you.
No,
Sorry to interrupt.
you're not interrupting.
Oh, okay.
That's that's the truth of it.
I just think this is so awesome, just hearing all these facts and
Yeah. So very next year, I mean, this was in 75, they're working that early prototype of a synth. 76, AC/DC releases Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap.
Yep.
It was their third LP released in Australia and in Europe. However, you have to remember this didn't come to the U.S. until 1981.
Right. Yeah.
So
Was it censorship or?
it was a few things. Some of it was censorship. Some of it was not the record label availability.
Right.
Also,
Right.
Bon Scott.
Distribution was totally different back
Yeah.
in that day. I mean, it wasn't digital. It wasn't like just sending it over a computer.
Oh, that's very true. Okay.
It was a shipment of records, literally like on a ship, crossing the ocean.
I mean, yeah.
So-
Talk about sailing the 7 seas.
Yeah.
How about the 7 notes? Yep. Nope.
So
I
it
had
didn't come to the U.S. until 81, more than a year after Bon Scott had actually died. Of course, on that album brought us Problem Child, Big Balls, Right On, and Jailbreak. A funny little footnote, in 1981, after the album was released in the U.S., a couple by the name of Norma and Marilyn White, who lived in Libertyville, Illinois, filed a $2,500,000, $250,000 1981 lawsuit
That's a lot of money back then.
against Atlantic, which is the record company that brought it to the U.S., and its distributors because they alleged their telephone number was the one in Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And actually, if you listen to the number, it was their number, but the last number's kind of muffled, but it sounded like a lot of people to an 8, and that was their phone number, 3624368. And people would prank call their house constantly, and they're about to lose their mind.
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So the lawsuit was justifiable.
I
in
don't
a
know, man. I
sense.
think I would still bank off of that somehow. I'd figure out, hey, I've got this number. Everybody's calling it.
Might as well get the
Figure out how to do
royalties.
something.
I give them a run for their money.
Yeah.
Oh, you called the right house. Who do you want dead?
Right, or like, what can I sell you? What are you looking for? I don't know. I'd figure it out because you would have like the prime. It's free advertising. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but it probably would be very annoying.
I'm sure it was. 76 also, Queen released Today at the Races. That album gave us Somebody to Love. And it was their first,
Man.
this is to be noted, it was their first self-produced album.
Okay. Nice.
I first heard that song on this movie that Anne Hathaway did. And it was like a romantic comedy, but it was, I think it was like in the medieval times. And I just remember as a child hearing, can anybody da-na? And it, like, I just remember thinking that moment when Anne Hathaway becomes happy in that particular scene, that song just kind of stuck with me, and I didn't know at the time that was Queen.
Yeah.
And their song, that
I love Queen.
yeah. If you don't love Queen, what is wrong with you? Why are you the way that you are?
You just don't want to be happy, do you?
Yeah.
You just don't like being happy.
It's like not liking
Yeah.
the Beatles. It's
Great
like,
album.
why? How?
Oh, don't
Hey,
get Amy
hey,
started.
Hey,
Don't
don't
get
even
Amy
get me.
started.
We're not
Don't
going
get
down
Amy
that
started.
route. We're not.
I'm so sorry.
She likes Queen, though, so it's okay.
Yeah.
1979, The Clash released London Calling. That was their third album, and it was a double album.
That's a big
And
one.
it's
Yeah.
it's regarded as one of the greatest rock and punk, or rock punk, whatever you want to call it, albums of all time. I would agree as well.
Yeah.
Skipping forward just a bit, 1991, a judge ruled in favor of the British singer-songwriter Gilbert Sullivan in his case against the rapper Biz Markie. Because he sampled his song Alone Again, naturally, without permission. And this is kind of important because this set precedence. It was a landmark case that establishes that sampling must be cleared before you use it or else.
Okay.
That happened with the Turtles too. They
It
had
did,
their
it
own
did.
case. Yeah.
This was in 91, so this was,
Yeah.
before that. So they knew better.
Oh.
They knew better.
Yeah.
And they did it anyway, and
Yeah.
was kind of the point.
Well,
Well, it has to
The
go-
Turtles, they were sampled in America, right? And so these laws are already made overseas.
Well, you have to
But
have
yeah,
a
they did.
court case to set precedent, and then
Yeah.
so it has to go through a court case, and then the president has to be set, and then
And after that, they'll say, well, guys, there's already been a case just like this. It's already been ruled this way. So
Yeah.
why did you even try this? What did you expect?
well,
kinda
then you
thing,
have
yeah.
you have legal availability to go in and sue or whatever under that ruling.
Precedent, yeah.
under the
Could it be
president.
like an ignorance is bliss thing that they might have not have known
Nope,
about?
you cannot do that. Nope,
Ignorance isn't allowed in the
not-
court of law.
No.
Ooh, that should
Yep.
be a song.
And that kind of goes
It is.
into
Oh,
it's gonna be.
the so we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about the AI from Spotify that is they're developing, that's going to tell singer-songwriters
If you're plagiarizing.
plagiarizing
Again.
anything, any melody,
That's
lyric,
already
etc.
happened.
Yeah. So.
So, like, in Instagram specifically, on my business account, there were times where I would play music behind where, like, what I was doing. So, like, let's say I was just, like, having a good time, smiling, trying to look cute. I'd have a song playing behind me. There is an AI system already in place, and it has messaged me and even taken my videos down.
Right.
And I was still kind of new to that, and so of course, I would, respect that.
This
but, I didn't know.
This one is something that there's already there. That is for pre-recorded music that it can pick up on. This is if you are writing, and as you're writing stuff or before you put it out, that it's gonna flag it and tell you that it has plagiarism issues.
But
so
what
it's
if
kind
you're
of in
writing
the process.
a song and you have never heard of a particular band?
Then it'll tell you.
But,
That you are yeah.
There have also been a lot of court cases like that because, I mean, as many chord progressions and possibilities and modal changes there are, I mean, there's only so many, and it's only a matter of time before you kind of copy, and people have sued just on those bounds, and usually those court cases get thrown out because they're not an exact copy.
This is on the idea of, again, the percentage difference being that threshold percentage. That triggers the lawsuits, that triggers that part, that aspect.
You're talking
of
about
things.
a 70% match versus like a 99% match.
The percentage is like the percent that has to be different. So what is the percent that has to be different? And that all the factors of the lyrics, the melodies, the chord changes, the all that stuff goes into all of this stuff. So very interesting. But there has to be a legal precedence before you can kind of bring it up. It has to go to a higher court, and then it's got to be decided and whatnot. So this was the case that kind of started a lot of the sampling, which was kind of a new thing at the time. And even though if it had been done earlier, a case hadn't been brought up high enough into the courts to have a precedent set for that
until this date.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm learning all sorts of new stuff today.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's crazy, man. This whole legal. We're working on getting a couple copyright lawyers and entertainment lawyers on.
I bet they're using the same AI technology that they use in apps like SoundHound, where like you can play a song and SoundHound like immediately
tells you what it is that
recognizes
you're
what
listening
song it
to.
is. So I bet they use that same
Well, this
technology,
isn't,
but
again,
for
this
songwriters.
isn't for Spotify one. It isn't like this is this exact song. This is like, basically from what I understood it as, was that the chords are too close to another song's chords, kind of thing, where it's not the song as overall, it's a element of the song is too close. If that makes sense. Where it's not a full song is the problem, its elements are a problem.
I guess what I could say on that note is, like, you have a lot of up-and-coming songwriters, right? And because of the next generation, people are learning guitar. And so, like, what if somebody were to come up with a chord progression, but with different lyrics, but the chord progression sounds close to, i.e., example, the Cranberries. Would this AI technology be like, you can't use that chord progression?
It would just let you know.
It would just let you know.
It would let you know
it's
that
more
it's too
sophisticated
close.
than that. I mean, for an example, so many blues songs are a regular 1-4-5 progression.
Yeah.
And so if you have this 80 E blues, it's not going to flag it immediately. It's like, oh, this is an exact match.
So
because you have so many other things within that, it's not.
Yeah, it's
not like that.
things that are particular melody that somebody has made a
matching vocals and riffs and everything.
It's okay. So when you have a song and you have these things these arguments, these legal battles, it's about, okay, what is the critical melody of the song, or what is if the chord progression itself is the critical melody of the song, the most important part of the song,
which
and
usually
you are
not.
literally taking it note for note, timing for timing, syncopation for syncopation, but maybe just slightly off in one way of those things, then that might be a problem.
The only flaw I could see with that is if somebody were to take the same chord progression and turn it up a key.
Yeah,
Or
that
turn it
doesn't.
down
That's
a
what I'm
key.
saying. That doesn't matter. Once you move into a different key, that's changed enough. The percentage threshold has changed. Or if you do like a slightly longer chord progression on this one part, but everything else is kind of the same, then that's different enough as well. There's all this legal stuff with this. It's a percentage that you have to Change, and I don't want to say it wrong on here, so I'm gonna have to look that up. But maybe somebody that knows more about the publishing or any of my entertainment lawyers out there, chime in. But we are gonna try it. I'm gonna try to get a couple different entertainment copyright lawyers and publishers on here to kind of
I
talk
guess the
about
only
that.
flaw
learn
to
a
all
lot
of this
from.
is ambiguity. Because, like, if you have the ambiguity, then people are going to fight it so they can retain the royalties that of which they have stolen in their hearts, but they can pretend like they had this creative epiphany.
Well, you have to prove that you have recorded something before they did.
That's very true.
So that's what it comes down to. And if you want to go through a legal battle in court,
It's
and all
it's
that
all
shit,
very subject to fine details.
I mean,
so, like, as an
and
as
even
an example,
then, that doesn't
okay.
guarantee. Even if you maybe are the one that came up with it first, and you have proof that you came up with it first, does not guarantee that you're going to win that.
That's true. You could do like an E minor, A minor, C chord progression, but like there are also lots of songs that have that same progression. I guess it just depends on the cadences and the dynamics.
Right. There's
It
sound
absolutely
and
melody on
cadence,
top of
It
it.
keys,
absolutely like
periods,
okay. So for an
syncopation.
example, Faithfully and Purple Rain, same chord progression,
Yeah.
different songs. So it's not just about that. There's so many elements that become
Right.
factors.
Exactly.
And when
right.
it starts to become a copy, that's when you start running
Right.
into like.
So now
getting
the
flagged.
thing is, the difference here is that we're talking about sampling. So sampling
Yeah.
is taking the actual recording from another artist and putting it into your song. This is not you copying it with your own instrument or your own interpretation of it. It is you are literally taking the sample of the song and putting it
You're
into
talking
your
about
song.
Vanilla Ice sampling Queen, and
Yeah.
they had to
Yeah.
go argue about that.
Yes.
Or Robin
So-
Thicke sampling, what was it, James Brown? Yeah?
Yeah,
But like
this
the thing is
yeah.
like sampling is okay if you ask the permission of the
That- right.
original
Well,
This
this is-
person did
file.
not ask.
Yeah,
They
Right,
just
so
did it
that's
without
where the
asking.
case
ask,
came
and
from,
they make
exactly.
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like that's just
And they
not
did not
fair.
ask.
Yes, that's
And
where
that's where the
but
precedent was set.
it was happening until the court case happened, until we got this president, until we got this sort of thing in 1991 is what we're saying. Like that's why this is a big deal for sort of how that all worked.
Well, I remember
Yeah.
when I was working at a flower shop, and there was this one R&B song that really struck my ear because they were sampling Henry Mancini.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I had just assumed that they had gotten the explicit
Permissions.
copyright permissions,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's airing all these years later.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
make
I mean,
your own parts.
well, I mean,
You would be
they're-
better
they're-
to make your own parts, yes.
It would be, but like Vanilla Ice is very successful with sampling that part. There's tons of artists who have done that and sampled and have been very successful. Actually.
And there's plenty that went about it the
So,
correct way
right.
as well.
And you can write a
So-
hit song with it, and it helps both you and that other artist. It's
So
not
what about
always a bad thing.
DJs?
That's a whole nother.
That's another conversation
yes.
entirely.
yeah, yeah. We got to keep going. Let's
Yeah.
keep the ball
I
rolling.
understand.
Yep.
In 1982, Nirvana released Incesticide. It consists of their 1990 non-album single, silver B-sides or demos or outtakes or what do you want to call them, covers and radio broadcast recordings.
Yeah.
Their record label at the time didn't really want to promote it because Nevermind, as well as 4 other singles, had been released in the last 15 months.
Right.
And they didn't want to just overload people or wear them out or whatever. Despite that, though, the album sold 500,000 copies in 2 months, so I don't think they were burned out.
Yeah. No, I bought it. I know.
Yeah,
I was in that
I know
line
you did.
to
I
go
know you
buy
did.
it. Yep.
And just a year later, in '93, MTV aired Nirvana's Unplugged session for the first time. The album featured an acoustic performance taped at Sony Music Studios in New York, which had been done a month prior in November.
Yep.
Unlike a lot of artists, though, that appeared on the show, Nirvana filmed its entire performance in a single take.
They did, but it took a long. It was a very long session, and
It was a
had
long
to
session with a
copy-
14-song set list.
Yeah,
Yep.
they had to
Oh,
cut a lot
man.
out between a lot of those just to make the
to
album.
make the time. Yeah.
Because he was high as a horse, man, high as a kite, and it was definitely, there's a lot of cool history with that entire concert and that entire session. Yeah, so definitely go check it out. It's out there.
Oh, it's out there. 2004. It was 16 years ago that we had to say goodbye to Dimebag Darrell.
Alright.
He was buried this week after a private funeral and then a public memorial service in Arlington, Texas. If you don't know the story, Dimebag Darrell was shot at a Damage Plan show, which was his band after Pantera, at a Columbus, Ohio venue.
Yep.
There was a young man that was an ex-Marine who was having a lot of mental issues and apparently kind of blamed Dimebag for the breakup of Pantera.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That
Dimebag
is
was shot.
horrible.
A security officer for the venue was shot. A fan was shot, and a Damage Plan staff person was shot, and all 4 of them were killed before the shooter was neutralized. But not to focus on his death, to more focus on his life. It was this week that his memorial service was held. Eddie Van Halen buried Dimebag with his B guitar, his black and yellow striped guitar.
Black and yellow strap one, yeah.
And people were shocked. Dimebag had always loved that guitar, and he had always loved Van Halen, and really channeled Van Halen a lot before his performances. Him and his brother Vinnie Paul were obsessed with Van Halen as kids, and would always listen to Van Halen before they went on stage. They were band members in Pantera and in Damage Plan, and they love Van Halen's energy. And Eddie Van Halen knew that, and he said, "Only original deserves an original." And he laid his guitar in Dimebag's casket, and he was buried with it.
It's awesome.
He was buried. He was buried in a Kiss casket donated by Kiss.
Yeah,
Jeez,
man. I bet you that thing
Yes.
was crazy, man. I bet that casket was
It's
nuts.
you can see pictures of it. It's nuts.
Yeah.
That
But
makes sense of the excerpt that I
sing
read
off
in
in
Gene
style.
Simmons' book. Yeah, he there's a one book that I read. I forgot the title, but like he mentions about having like the casket business. He's a very smart man, but I feel
You're
like
a businessman
he did that out of
first,
love.
man.
Eddie
Yeah.
Van Halen
That
and Zakk Wylde gave eulogies for Dimebag, as well as Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, and they all performed his memorial service.
Oh man.
Thousands and thousands of people gathered outside of out of the Arlington Conventional Center.
What year was this again?
2004.
Oh.
All of them drinking and cranking Pantera tunes to play tribute. Also in the memorial service was Nick Bocott from Grim Reaper, Alice in Chains bassist Mike Inez, Fear Factory guitar player Dino Kaz, and Slipknot members Jim Root, Corey Taylor, and Paul Gray also were in attendance. And a few months later, Zakk Wylde with Black Label Society paid tribute to Dimebag with his song called In This River. In the video, it depicts 2 boys, which are really Zakk and Dimebag, that want to swim across the river and come back. And Zakk makes it back and Dimebag doesn't. And of course, that was a metaphor for the river Styx, which we will all have to cross someday.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
2006, Pink Floyd donated 2 of their signed giant eyeballs to Crisis for 16 quid, which is upwards of about 21 grand in American money for the Crisis charity, which supports homeless people there in the UK.
Yeah.
This was David Gilmour's idea. He's always been a supporter of Crisis, and he said at the time, not only with they made the choice to auction the eyeballs on eBay, and so of course they went to the highest bidder. And it was his hope they would also erase the plight of homelessness in the UK, because obviously in colder climates homelessness is a very big issue.
Yeah. There you
For
go.
sure.
Rock stars, doing what they can, supporting charities, man.
6 foot tall eyeballs with handcrafted stands.
Nice. Who wouldn't want 6 foot tall eyeballs in their house or their backyard?
Designed by David Gilmour.
That's right. I think I just put them on my house. I put them on the top
On the roof. And you light them up so the airplanes can see them coming over.
I don't know, man. I totally do that. I just, yeah.
It's for
It
charity.
would happen. It would happen. Yes.
But they are actually pretty cool looking. They made their final appearance in the Pulse DVD during the time they were playing Dark Side of the Moon. They are pretty cool looking. You should check them out.
Yeah.
But you can't have them. They already have a home.
I'm sure. I don't want to spend that kind of money either. No offense. don't want to go to jail.
It was this year in 2010 that Motorhead also this week released "The World Is Yours," and they dedicated it to Ronnie James Dio, who of course we had to say goodbye to during that year.
Yep. Dang.
Man.
But it was Motorhead's 20th album and their 35-year anniversary together. It was a pretty special time for him, and it's just as a harder rock album as the rest of them. Incredible career, Motorhead.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Lemmy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Influenced a lot of people.
A lot. Of
Very
people.
cool bar. If you go out to LA, of course, the Rainbow Bar.
I've got my picture.
Get your picture in front
With
of
Lenny.
Lenny. Yes. Yes. Anything
That's
else
what I've got for you guys.
in the music history? Thank you, Julie, for our music history class, and I hope you guys enjoyed it out there. We have 2 more little segments to go through. You guys stick with us. We got a pretty good amount of people on. Thank you guys for hanging around and enjoying all of this with us. Feel free to again make comments and let us know
Yes.
you're here. Say hey, ask questions, all the good things. This is a podcast. This is about the conversation, and we like to have a lot of fun. So let us
We
know.
sure do.
All right, so we got to pause the music, of course. That's our next segment, and that is where we're going to talk about Ozzy Osbourne, one of my favorite people to talk about.
Dream
of
Alone
course.
or Post Malone.
Yes. All right. So there are rumblings and rumors and lightning striking that Ozzy Osbourne has a new album possibly coming out, and this one is going to be 80s era inspired.
Oh, that
I
is
hope
so
so.
awesome. I'm
So,
so excited.
Very excited about this. All right. So he already put out, of course, Ordinary Man a little bit earlier this year. When he did this, he had stated at the time that he wanted to put out another album. I mean, this man is like all the things going against him, but
He's never gonna quit. Though.
a rock star, true at heart, he wants to put out another one. Obviously, of course, the pace is a little bit slower because of what's going on with COVID. But he talked to the producer, of course, is Andrew Watt. Told Guitar World recently that they were actually already about halfway done with this album. So it's going to be a follow-up album. So it's pretty cool. It's already halfway done. And it's basically just him in the studio with Ozzy and his engineers. So super stripped down, in this times of COVID. Of course, they're trying to keep him safe,
As much needs be,
as
yes.
possible.
Of
Yep.
course, yeah.
But so things are a little bit slower, but he said he's very excited. There are some songs on there, guys, that are like 8 or 9 minutes long. And they're really crazy journeys, he's saying. So I'm very excited about this. It's going to be taking us on some of these journeys, these concept albums, these songs that are truly inspiring, that kind of take you on along. It's not about the under the 3-minute mark kind of songs. These are the golden age of rock and roll, of metal. So very exciting about this one. And of course he had, we've got a couple guest rock stars on this. So Chad Smith of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he played on the Ordinary Man album. And he's already recorded a couple new tracks with Walt. Of course, Metallica Robert Trujillo played also for Osbourne back in the day. He did a couple tracks. You also have Foo Fighters drummer, of course, Taylor Hopkins, also rocking out on this. So, and they're saying this is hearkening back to 80s era Ozzy. Yes.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, they're talking about this is basically Chad Smith. About half the album on there is Chad Smith on drums. When you flip it over, you get to hear, of course, Taylor Hopkins on the other half. So very cool. Big drummer rock stars playing on this. So very cool to see the collaboration going on. And of course, this is Watt produced and played guitar on Ordinary Man. Of course, that was Ozzy's first solo album in over a decade. So he's already going to be we're gonna do some more with this. So I'm excited. Of course, he had the Parkinson's, diagnosed over a year ago. Yeah, so there you go. The album Ordinary Man has already become one of the highest charting solo albums of all time. So yeah.
I love Under the Graveyard as well.
Yeah. So and Watt is saying that this actually has brought up Ozzy's spirits and has get him super excited about this album.
Good.
So
Well,
yeah.
Ozzy is just a legend in general.
Man, keep going, man. Keep going. That's going to be great. All right, so talking about rock stars and sort of bands that haven't really put anything out in a while but are coming back. We have Liquid Tension Experiment,
I'm
of
excited about
course,
this, actually.
reuniting. They have not had anything out in 22 years, so it's been a while.
And they're coming out with something this year?
They are. So, the Prague instrumental
Wow.
supergroup, of course, if you guys know who these guys are, they've got the members of Dream Theater and King Crimson. Supergroup coming together. They have announced an album. Now, 1999 is the last time the album came out. They did put out a teaser. You guys can go on there, and it is redonkulous. It is crazy. You can go check it out. It's called Liquid. The album is going to be called Liquid Tension Experiment 3, and they are saying it's going to drop spring 2021. So again, some more things to look forward to 2021.
2021 is going to be
great.
the year.
Yes,
We're
yeah.
ready for it.
Very exciting. Of course, you got Peter Gabriel's bassist Tony Levin. It's the original LTE lineup. You got Dream Theater musicians Sean Petrucci and Jordan Rudess, and then you've got, of course, drummer Mike Portnoy and King Crimson, Peter Gabriel bassist Tony. So yeah, original lineup. So they say basically what happens when you put 4 talented musicians who are probably batshit crazy but uber talented into a room together. This is what happens. So you guys can go check it out. And they're saying this is for the fans. They are putting this out for you guys out there, the fans. So it's very exciting to see that. They look forward. Now they're gonna basically, let's see. This one is gonna be. Join the Inside Out family. And so they're on there. They've been working together, and they reunited over the summer. And it's, so if
Did
you go,
it feel so good?
Yeah. How did it feel? So when, of course, they reunited, they put this out. It's over about a minute of this teaser that you can go check it out. It's pretty brutal. So, once we have more information about sort of the exact time for this to come out, we'll let you guys know, of course, because Sonic Sphere is where you can get all of your updated information for music and what's happening in the music world. Alrighty, so as I said, we are going to talk about a few things that helped us survive 2020 without concerts, and we're going to kind of highlight some of the cool things that happened this year, see if you guys remember some of these things, as we kind of do a year in review, right? Because we are at the end of the year almost. I mean,
About
seriously, we are getting there, man. It's pretty crazy to think that this is already December. We're already December 22nd? Where are we?
It's the
It's the
21st.
Ooh.
It's the 21st for a couple more hours.
Yeah, 21st for a little
20-something.
bit. 21st for a few more hours. We're close, though. All right. So, of course, we did not have the concerts as we know it. All right, so a couple different things changed. Do either of you guys, what were some of the things that you guys remember as far as how you experienced and consumed music through this year?
Well, for me personally, I was used to going to shows at the Masquerade and at 529 and just supporting my local brethren in their journey towards stardom and successory.
Yeah.
And that's something that I personally, as a consumer, has missed. As a musician, I have missed being able to perform at these venues. However, there are outlets like Quarantine Karaoke and Socially Distance Fest.
So have you done either of those?
I have done both, yes.
Okay.
And I actually have met quite a few friends. I'm going to give a quick shout out to my friend Hazy Hayes. She is super awesome. She is someone on Quarantine Karaoke who is killing it, and she is a rising acoustic guitar player star that is seeking out the passion of rock, but she has a very beautiful voice, and I have seen a lot of rising stars
real quick,
all over the world.
So real quick, what is the Quarantine Karaoke? What do you do on that?
So Quarantine Karaoke and Socially Distance Fest are very two different things. So Socially Distance Fest started first.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just gathering all types of artists, like hula hoopers, painters.
Well,
But-
originally it was mostly acoustic artists because I was on that. So it was on Facebook,
Yeah.
Facebook Live, and it was a group. And so you would
I
essentially.
remember when it was 1,000.
Yeah, I was, yeah, really early on. So I know that one. So, and it was sort of just like you and a guitar, and you get up there and you do everything from originals to covers.
I've done that before
yeah,
too. It's
yeah.
super fun.
And then I love how it just like you would put somebody out in Oklahoma who just picked up the guitar, sitting in their living room, plays a song, and they would get something like 12K views. I mean, it got
Exactly. It's
huge.
cool.
It was just incredibly crazy how big it got. And then what I loved was I started seeing the other things. I started seeing like glass blowers start to make crafts and stuff.
I've
and
seen that too in hula hoopers.
it was crazy, yeah.
And
So it expanded.
painters.
Yeah, and so it really expanded to these other forms of art, and I started seeing some cool bass stuff where the people would do these synthesizers and loops and all sorts of stuff, and I was like, all right.
Justin
so,
Monday, I'm giving a shout out to him.
Oh yeah, Justin.
He is on these platforms a lot, and he gets a
Yeah.
lot of streaming views.
Yeah. And isn't it Munday Monday in that? wanna say
I
it's
think
spelled
it's
that
the
way.
regular Monday, but you might
Okay.
be right. I'd have to look back at my social media. But then you have quarantine karaoke.
Yeah. So what is
which came-
quarantine karaoke?
Quarantine karaoke and American Idol have actually negotiated and have scouted out people to be on their show. So you might see some rising stars from
Interesting.
Quarantine Karaoke
So you're
on
playing.
American Idol.
So you're playing. So these are covers. Like. So you have the cover song in the background, and you're singing on top of it, or
No, some of these people have done that, and some of these people have just played their original music. And these companies from like NBC and Fox have scouted out because I guess the creator of Quarantine Karaoke may or may not be some kind of executive. This is just a
Okay.
theory that I've based off of. However, I have known of like these bigger television companies, and I have seen the flyer on karaoke quarantine karaoke, quarantine, yeah, all that stuff. I've seen the flyer where they're actually scouting out talent. And it just makes me wonder why they didn't do it with Social Distance Fest. But I think because Social Distance Fest is so oversaturated, and
Yeah.
Quarantine Karaoke has like a specific like karaoke. They're looking for a
like
particular
more
type of
singer based
Yeah,
sort of thing?
more singer
Okay.
songwriter
Okay,
kind of
gotcha.
things. So
All right,
that's something that
interesting.
I have personally noticed. I've done both
Okay.
both platforms. They have a great community.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend if you are a singer-songwriter artist of some point to join these groups because
Yeah.
the community is just ever so loving.
Yeah, I was gonna say even in the so I don't know about the other one, but the Socially Distanced Fest, I'm still on there. I see that pop up, and I'm just amazed about how supportive everybody is in these groups. I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are watching these clips, and I'm surprised that there really isn't any whole lot of negativity in that. It's all really positive. So it's a great way to get out and express yourself. And like I said, it's everything from you're a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar to you are making a clay pot. I mean,
Or you are a mom that is just trying to sing along.
Yeah.
And I personally, I cannot tell you how many times where I've had a long night of partying and I turn on Quarantine Karaoke and there's some mother in the Philippines that's just singing her heart out, and it is the most
there you
amazing thing you can see.
There you go.
All these people from all over the world.
Yep. So, so speaking of that, there's a couple other things, of course, that some notable ways that we have sort of expanded are how we put our music out and how we consume it. One of them being, of course, what's considered the socially distanced jams. One of the
Yes.
ones that's big about this is, of course, Charlie Benente he's the Anthrax drummer. And initially he kind of started just doing... playing drum covers, a couple really broad genre drum covers essentially, to some that kind of things that you expect to things that you didn't expect, and then it started bringing on special guests, and it kind of turned into this full jam thing, which is really cool. So there's a bunch of those joining in, and he of course said, paid respects to a couple of the musicians that he really really enjoyed and loved. It's even the supergroup, the Wheel Blocks, did Aces High. They did a cover of that. It's really cool. Plus the internet show 2 minutes to late night, got a bunch of musicians to cover everything from Ozzy to, of course, Weird Al Yankovic. So lots of cool things going on there. Of course, you guys remember the drive-in concerts. We had Metallica, of course, one of the bigger names that did this. There were a lot of drive-in concerts this year. It's this whole drive-in theater idea. So you basically, obviously drive in up in the car and put the music on the radio as the performers performed up on stage, and everybody was socially distant in their cars. And this, of course, all outdoors. There were a couple acts. Of course, you've got Soli from Godsmack and Stain's Aaron Luce. They made the rounds, playing in person at a couple different of these different drive-in theaters. Metallica, of course, being the bigger one, and they actually taped their own concerts with full production over at a winery. I think we talked about this in the last podcast in California.
We did.
And they played it on the screen at drive-in theaters across the country. And I remember actually down here, if you guys are in Atlanta, Starlight Theater. Our drive-in theater down here, Starlight Theater, down on the south side, had the Metallica there. So very cool. All right, so we also had the live stream concerts themselves.
Yes.
Right? So we have the biggest one, of course, Under Oath. So a lot of things, of course, changed. A lot of people were doing sort of what I call the DIY stuff, which is sort of the socially distant fest and all that kind of thing. I feel like a couple of the artists took note and was like, we can do this too, but let's ramp it up. Let's make it more of a reduction and go even bigger. So we've got a lot of this, of course. A lot of them jumped online for the fans to keep us entertained throughout this year. Of course, you're not going to be able to tour, so why else? We got to perform. We're going to do a live stream concert. Basically kind of what we're doing here, right? So we've been doing that. Of course, we got Dropkick Murphys. They played for St. Patrick's Day. You guys remember that earlier this year. Post Malone, of course, had a huge live stream concert. And he paired with Travis Barker for an entire set of Nirvana songs. You guys remember that? Post Malone playing Nirvana songs. So that was
Pre Malone
huge.
there?
Yes, tribute to one of theirs. So Code Orange also did a record release show, if you guys remember that, and a candlelight MTV-like stage, like the MTV Unplugged stages. They did that whole thing as well. We have Gwar, of course. Gwar even put on a show. Yep.
Not to be outdone, ever.
Yes, not to be outdone
Was
by...
Cuttlefish there? Oh, please, Cuttlefish be there.
Yeah, we have... Yes,
Cuttlefish makes Gwar.
They have, yes. And they have, of course, they were outdone, I have to say. Behemoth, of course, this is one of the big ones of the year. Behemoth put a full concert in a church. That was huge. That was pretty big.
Interesting.
Yeah, put a big one out there. And then, of course, Puss of Fire topped everybody. I think this is the biggest one. They did one out in the desert. You go check it out. They did, it's like an artistic desert community. This is out in Arizona. All right, so basically by the end of this year, I mean, pretty much everybody that I know locally just about has put out a live stream show concert. We're even doing this in the podcast. We're doing a live stream show type concert. So it really has changed how we went from sort of in-person concerts, or even with a podcast, just doing audio, and then maybe adding a video compart. Now we're talking about like actually doing live stream. We can hear from you guys. We can see you guys out there in the crowds, and we're interacting with you guys, and it's a show. So it's a whole different thing. It's all live stream.
It's definitely made it a lot more like interactive.
Yes, yeah. So very interesting.
Because like when you're performing live on a stage, you have all these consumers with all of their thoughts, and they might want to tell you how good you are on stage, but they can't tell you because you're performing. However, with the live aspect of performing, the Facebook Live, they can actually tell you how you're doing, and you can actually respond to them. So it makes it more user-friendly, and it creates a bigger engagement.
Yeah. So, yes, in a different way, I think. I think there is
For
something
sure.
obviously about being in a concert and being with other concert goers and sort of the engagement that you have there, the live experience engagement. But this is a new thing for us, and I think tech obviously helped us get here. But it's interesting. I'm curious to see how this is going to move forward. So I do think next year we're going to have this continued hybrid, because it has shown to be successful. But
I'm sure we will.
I don't think we're ever going to fully go completely live stream or completely non-live in person. So we'll see.
I'm thinking holographs in the future.
Oh, we've talked about that one too. We've talked about the holograph thing a little bit in our tech section, and it has been somewhat successful. Of course, they did that with Whitney Houston. They also did that with Dio recently.
And Amy Winehouse too.
Possibly, yeah. And those were sold out shows, but I think it was mixed reviews on those as well. So I'm not sure how much we're gonna do that, but we'll keep you updated because that's what we do. We talk about tech and future and music and how that all comes together. Speaking of that too, we have speaking of live stream concerts, we also had what was basically these huge virtual festivals. One of the biggest ones, of course, being Foo Fighters at the SOS Fest, hashtag SOS Fest. That was the big one. That was in March, right? So March, the pandemic was kind of really starting to hit people. I think they're realizing that shit was hitting the fan. And that is basically when spring festival season would be here, right? So there's always, a huge number in spring and summer and fall, but like that was the kickoff for that, of course. And so bands basically were like, nope, we canceled all of those in-person festivals, and so they ended up doing a couple different these virtual ones. So they had to think on the fly. They kind of came up with this one, of course. Europe, they also did a couple different metal festivals, and they united for, of course, the European Metal Festival Alliance did an online event, and Fearless Records drew in a number of names to the Fearless at Home Virtual Fest. And of course, we have the Foo Fighters. They were a big one that they did for the SOS Fest, which, of course, was for our Save Our Stages movement. Now, that's a big deal. That supports local independent music venues. We're going to talk about that in a second. All right, so we also had this drum battle. I don't know if you guys remember this drum battle. So there was this 10-year, I think, I don't know how old she was. She was young. Nandy Bushell. She's a drummer. So she's gotten really big on YouTube. She did a bunch of covers. She's
I've heard of
super
this
young,
person.
yeah.
Yes.
So she got really big, and Dave Grohl, of course, got interested and was like, "Look at this!
Kid?
Look,
Yeah.
who's this kid?" Yeah. So it was really cool, but they actually did this whole drum off. He challenged her to a drum off, which was
No
amazing.
way.
Yeah.
Did she win?
Yeah.
She's like 10, right?
Yeah, something like
Oh,
that.
yes, I have
yeah.
heard of her. Yes.
And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, and
She is so talented.
yes.
Kudos for her.
Yeah, so they did this drum battle. You can go see this on
She
YouTube.
must have a great marketing team.
And she has some crazy skills, of course, and he
does.
was one of her biggest idols, so it was like really cool for her. And they basically went this back and forth drum off. Grohl eventually arranged for a virtual meetup with her. Which is amazing, and showed his admiration towards her, though, which is, I mean, that would be like a dream come true. He also invited her to jam on stage when the Foo Fighters do return to touring, so you might see her up on the stage.
I hope so.
Yeah. Alrighty. So the next part is, of course, the breakout of what we know as Twitch. This is the year for Twitch, right? So the gaming platform, originally this is kind of just a gaming platform. This has kind of taken on a whole new level. I know people who are doing music lessons on Twitch right now and actually making an income. Like Nita Strauss is on there. And she's teaching guitar lessons. I mean, so this is kind of another way that musicians are finding a way of making income and still playing. We've got a couple big things, of course. Linkin Park's Mike found the Twitch community so engaging that he basically started taking these suggestions from the Twitch community and creating music from that. He went that far. So he kind of took it in a whole nother direction. That's very cool. It eventually evolved into basically these full recordings. Speaking while he speaks to fans through the platform in a series of sort of, it's called the Drop Frames album. So that's a whole nother level of taking this stuff, of course. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. Trivium's Matt Heffy, of course, had already been performing a couple cover songs on YouTube, and he switched over to Twitch channel. Now it's huge. Now he's got a huge following. He's making money. Concerts. Concerts went to Twitch. So there you go.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah, whole
That's
thing.
Insane.
Yep, whole thing on Twitch. So there you go. Alrighty. So what's the other thing? Song style creations. This is coming from, of course, Dragon Force Herman Lee. They basically he's pretty predominant on the site, which is on Twitch, of course, and he offered something a little bit different. So he basically was like, I'm gonna write a song in the style of another band with a timed goal. So he kind of put this challenge out to himself.
Ooh.
So he went through and played a whole bunch, creating basically, he worked through creating Five Finger Death Punch, Rammstein, Sabaton, style tracks on the clock. He had to do it on the clock right there. So if you guys want to get your chops up, this is a great idea.
Cool.
So check that out, of course.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly. So we got a couple more. Of course, we had the best daily feature, and this kind of came from Steel Panthers. What
I
fucking
love
day is
Steel
it?
Panther. They're so much fun to perform with.
All right, so they were kind of one of the first ones to be like, all right, this isn't going away. We're going to have to kind of come up with a new normal. They kind of found it funny. So they launched a daily, basically it was a daily social media thing, and they put out What Effin' Day Is It? You can go check it out. As a lot of the people started working from home, they offered this helpful reminder served up with, of course, they do this sort of 90s in T&B style graphic, theme songs, all this stuff. And they tell you exactly what day it is.
I wonder if they would remember me.
Yeah, I don't know. So there you go. Always a fun band, thinking outside the box and taking advantage of it and making it funny.
Well, I actually met Michael Starr.
There you go.
And he is.
Well, you shared the
persona.
stage or something. Did you get up there on stage with him?
Yeah, I actually was there by chance, and one of my friends pushed me up. He's like, you gotta get up towards the front, because he knew that they were gonna call the women up because he had been to enough of their shows. I got up on stage, I sang Barracuda, and one guy was like, you wanna show some skin? I'm like, no, I wanna sing. And
I want to be the singer, not the backup dancer.
And Michael, they had just, the funny thing is that they had just got done, telling the guy, oh, you're great, you're such a great addition. And then, I sang, and they were like, well, what do you want to sing? And I'm like, oh, what's the one rock song I sing? I'm like, Barracuda.
Ah.
And,
that's cool.
And, the guitar player, he just was on it. And the bass player looked at me, and he was also on it, and drummer. And Michael Starr just kind of sat back, and all these chicks were all over him, and I just was like,
oh yeah,
and
nice.
then the funny thing is, they're like, you're fired, you're fired. He's like, I'm not fired. And he's like, yeah, you're fired. And I actually got to chill with him backstage. They are very genuine people, but don't mess with their beer stash.
Oh, I
do
okay.
not.
I think a rule of thumb.
Mess with the bass player's beer stash.
I think the rule of thumb
find
is
you,
not to do that,
and he will say a couple of words. That's all I gotta say. If you happen to be backstage
couple
with
of
Steel
choice
Panther,
words,
do not mess with their beer stash.
There you go. You heard it from live here in person. Don't F with the alcohol.
Yes. They will throw in
any situation.
They will be out for blood. That's their stash. Don't mess with their
funny.
stash.
That's funny. Alrighty, well, guys, we also had, of course, pandemic-inspired music that came out. So we did have a couple different songs and artists and albums that put out
My song.
pandemic stuff.
Sorry, I had to pull my plug.
Yeah. So we'll see more of that. I feel like we're gonna see a bunch of this, but of course we have Billy Joe Armstrong put some stuff out. 21 Pilots, of course, put some stuff out.
Really? There's still a thing?
Yeah, there's still a thing.
Wow,
Everybody
good
is
for them.
still a thing, Bri.
I actually
Everybody's still a thing.
They actually came into Atlanta a couple of years ago through Music Midtown, and I got up to the barricades and I threw a turquoise bracelet at the drummer, and he was kind of on a platform, and you could actually see the bracelet being thrown at him, and he was just he was on something, because even though the bracelet like hit his cymbal, he was not even phased. It was just like 1, 2.
That's funny.
One of the best concerts of my life.
There you
Anyways,
go.
I'm
there
sorry.
you go. That's all right. So yeah, everything is still a thing, including throwing jewelry at beautiful men. It's okay.
Yes!
You can do that.
I will throw jewelry at all the beautiful musical men.
There you go. All right. So we just got a couple more in this part. Of course, we had a bunch of collaborations that happened throughout the year.
Ooh, I'm excited to hear them.
Yeah. So we had Blackstone Cherry and, of course, Munster Truck. They kind of collaborated together to try to bring something to the fans. So basically, the first conceived, Munster Truck's John Mary Harvey appeared as a guest. Of course, Blackstone Cherry's Cherry Chat. The two bands thought it was a great idea. Let's collab, and they did. And this is, of course, over Zoom sessions. So they did this all over Zoom.
So like
course.
two bands collaborated together?
Yeah, and they released a song
and
called...
they like doubled the bass parts and doubled the everything?
They released their song Love Become Law. You can check it out. It's a benefit single, proceeds, of course, going towards the Boys and Girls Club of America, as well as Black Lives Matter. So go.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
I
so you
just
can go
wanna
check that out. So
clap to you.
collaborations, exactly. So
Yes.
we've got that. All right, so we also have a couple milestones that got hit. Metallica, Mondays. Metallica's done a bunch. They've given a bunch to a lot of charities. They've done a bunch. They put a lot of stuff out. They've kind of put themselves out there during this whole time.
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, so they basically did a chronologizing of their live shows over the years. So you can download that audio for some of the best performances of these live concerts over the years. And they basically launched what's called Metallica Mondays. Music Mondays, hashtags, provided an entire live stream concert. You guys know this. Every Monday, it was a live stream concert from the band's archives. So there you go. They were just giving that out. Each show, of course, gave sort of something that each show they selected viewers. They selected the series that something stood out and reminded them all of sort of this decades-long music that they had. So they kind of highlighted all of these different cool little parts that distinguished each of these. I mean, they've had a long career, so so lots of music, so very cool. So they did that, and of course, we also have what I like, which is the podcasting. Now, podcasting became big. I don't know if you guys remember this. There's a recent story we did for you guys, which was Lizzie Hale, of course. Lizzie Hale kept going. She's wrote a whole double album, kept going.
I will buy Lizzie Hale
And yeah, she basically did a bunch of socially distant covers. She did a whole take on, of course, She Talks to Angels. If you want to check that out, of course, Lizzie Hale. And then, yeah, she started doing basically a podcast called, she became the host of Raise Your Horns, which is a great name for podcast.
really
New bucket
cool.
Yep.
list. I want to be on
Yes.
Lizzie Hale's podcast.
Exactly.
Well, let's let her know.
Yeah. She
Yes,
also...
Lizzie Hale, if you're
There
hearing
you
me,
go,
I want to
Lindsay.
be on your podcast.
If
Bri
Lizzie
Foxx.
Hale is listening to my podcast,
Then
I might
we're,
just...
we're doing way better than we thought we were doing.
Great, man. But I hope she
You never
is
know.
because I just love
I want to
Lizzie
be on
Hale.
her podcast too.
All right, so yeah, she also did TV host for AXS A Year in Music, and did a bunch of course, she was very engaging with social media, so you could literally see her on social media talking to fans, pretty often. So totally just didn't stop. This didn't keep her inside, didn't stop her from any of it. So that was very cool. Of course, then we also had the frontline workers and the spotlights on them, as well as the music industry folks behind the scenes. So we had a couple of fundraisers for them and everything. Of course, we had a bunch of that. And we had, let me see what we had on that one, of course. That's so we had basically we have Alter Bridge and Matt Strom shoot videos, basically shining a light on our essential workers. So kind of brought that out, which is great because we needed this. We needed to kind of highlight what was going on and who's really kind of on the front line, as well as who's being forgotten.
Can I make a shout out to my dad?
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, you're a very essential worker, and I'm very proud of you for putting yourself out there every day, landscaping with my brother, and doing the best that you can to provide. And I want you to know that I love you. And I love you too, Mom, and I know that you are teaching art to all the children, and my parents are essential workers. I grew up in a blue-collar family. And I'm so thankful to come from such strong backgrounds. And these people have shaped me into who I am. And so my perception of essential workers, my parents are both essential workers. They are essential to me, and they are essential to the society of East Cobb. So Dad, I love you so much. Thank you for being the strong person that you are. Thank you for being so essential. And thank you for, even though we are in a pandemic, you have the smarts and you have stayed COVID-free. So thank you.
There you go. All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had to, I
Yeah.
had to thank my parents.
Well, shout out to all the essential workers out there. Fortunately, looking like we've got a little bit of relief on the horizon, but we're still in the thick of it. So as we always say here on the podcast, take care of each other and take care of others.
Yes.
Take care of yourself.
Wear a mask.
Yeah. So, all right, final bit, final big kind of highlight of this year as far as how we sort of changed what we did with the music and how we changed all of that was of course, there was a big interview series that happened. And a lot of this was, of course, from Lily Cornell Silver, who is the daughter, of course, of Chris Cornell.
I was going to ask.
Yep. So she did a whole set about sort of breaking down again the mental health, the whole concepts that we have and these walls that we have with mental health, and did a full discussion of mental health with full discussions in a interview series with a bunch of mental health professionals, as well as the artists in the industry talking about this stuff and on a personal level and really talking about what it is and how it's affecting them. And of course, Duff was on there. I think Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder was on there.
Mm-hmm.
Talked a little bit about that, and then there's also
is very important.
there's a whole bunch, even actresses, singers, artists, so it's really good that we kind of got this out, and it's kind of cool that
I mean, that's a personal goal of mine. To make sure that people are mentally healthy, because if we have a society of mentally healthy people, who knows the utopias we could create. It's not fair. The mental health system can kind of be unfair to those, but at the same time, it's not out of ignorance. It's just a matter of understanding, and because this is also new.
Exactly. So it's kind of like we've never really in our noted lifetime that we remember had a bunch of sort of this isolation that's going on top of trauma. It's PTSD. So she did this on her Mind Wide Open podcast, of course. Had a bunch of people on there. You can check it out. But I think it's good that we're bringing this out and talking about it, because, again, that kind of goes into, for me, the anger, the frustration, and the sadness.
Could I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
If you are a listener and you're listening right now, if you need help and if you need guidance, if you just need somebody to talk to, please feel free to reach out to me. I can help you. I want to help you, the individual. You can message me on Bri Foxx Music, or you can message me through my personal Bri Foxx account, or you can even message me through Toxic Foxtrot. If you need help with mental health, I want to be there for you. I don't want you to feel alone. It is something that I am very passionate about, and I will do my absolute best to be there for you. So if you are a listener, you are not alone. I want to be on your side. And that is all I'm going to say about that.
Awesome. So definitely. Thank you, Bri. And
Of course.
that's important. It's important. We're also here. We have a good music community. We have a good community here. Reach out. There are people who have gone through the same stuff or are going through the same stuff. That
I don't
can
want
help.
anybody to feel the way that I have felt before.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, let's end it on a kind of a positive note because we have.
Woo!
Yeah, so I haven't checked the news yet. I got to check it in a little bit here, but we have
It was
basically it was approved. Well, signed.
Yes.
I don't know if it's been signed yet. I know it's gone through Congress now, through both houses.
Let's
Congress
check.
has voted on the $900 billion COVID relief bill. So what does this mean? There's a lot of stuff to the individual, to the families, to your unemployment, to all of that stuff. But what does that mean for the gig workers, the music industry folks, and more particular, what happens to our independent music venues? So very cool that this rolled out because we got some good news. So it is the largest U.S. spending bill in history. So it's pretty huge. And it's big for live music. So they struck a deal. This is, of course, the second relief package that has come out. 15 billion of it has been set aside, guys, for live venues, independent movie theaters, and cultural institutions.
It was signed and passed about 9:15 tonight.
All right, so 9:15 tonight, this has been passed. So very good news and a big deal for a lot of the struggling art community. So very big, of course. There's been artists who, again, kind of speaking of the things that musicians have done throughout the year. There's a bunch of them, Foo Fighters, Miley Cyrus, a bunch of them that did raised money, of course, for the independent music venues, Save Our Stages, and they did raise about $2 million, almost $2 million for it.
That's beautiful.
$2 billion, of course, was raised across the pond over in the UK back in July. $5.6 billion and $1.13 billion was committed by France and Germany, respectively. So some countries are paying attention to this, but this is pretty big. This is a lot of money. $15 billion going into independent music venues. That's huge. So we'll see. So Save Our Stages Act was introduced by, of course, Amy Klobuchar and John Kumin.
And it's very encouraging to see
Yes.
this kind of support for an artist community. I think it's something that kind of goes by the wayside a lot with
Well,
legislation.
it's the first thing to go, usually,
And so, well, yeah, a lot was an understatement. It is the first thing to go.
Yeah.
So the fact that this is part of this bill is very encouraging to me, and I'm sure all of you.
Yeah, so this is a big deal. Both of the senators, of course, had the goal of being able to provide these independent venues with 6 months of financial support. So along with that $15 billion, the second package, of course, this package will, anybody that's under a certain yearly income, you will, of course, receive the $600 direct payment. It's not as big as the first one, but it's something. There's an additional $600 per dependent child if you have dependent children. So unemployed Americans will also get the $300 per week, and that's going to be for a total of 11 weeks. So that's basically going to take us into about mid-March. And hopefully by then the vaccine will be distributed enough that we can start seeing things come back and the economy come back and music start to come back to where it was. Of course, there is an additional $82 billion that's going to be going to K-12 schools and the colleges. And there's $48 billion that's going to go to COVID-19 vaccines and, of course, the distribution of those vaccines. $25 billion is going to go to rental assistance, which is a big thing right now. That's
Very
a
big.
big topic. $12 billion for minority-owned and very small businesses. So I'll be interested to see how they are qualifying the very small businesses, considering the first round wasn't qualified a lot. So if you were a $billion McDonald's, you could still qualify. So it'd be curious to see how this sort of, they're going to strip this down. $10 billion, of course, is going to go to child providers, and there's a bunch more in this bill today. So it's very all-encompassing. It's a lot. So there's a lot in here. It is, as of 9/15, signed. So
and we'll see with this 11-week bill.
reasons.
It's meant to be a stopgap for
Yeah.
the bill that will come after. So we'll see what comes after this. But obviously, I think it's an encouraging moment for us.
It's a big deal. So I see it as there's a light on the horizon for musicians like me, that this is your full-time job. This is what you do. This is how you make a income. This is how you support whatever you want to support your family or whatever. And to essentially have it completely shut down since March, we are in December. To be able to see some light on the horizon, for me, is huge. It's not like trying to ask the government for a handout, but when you can't even do your job, or you're not allowed to do your job,
You can't go to your job.
it's hard, and to basically be out of work for almost a year, and you don't qualify for unemployment. You can't get the unemployment payments. You can't, you don't qualify for all these things. It's that you fall between the gaps. So to kind of see that we can keep the venues, who are almost in just as about of a bad position, if not worse, where they can't really ethically and legally at some points stay open to basically let people like me go do our jobs, then that's really hard when you can't just turn around and become a fast food business that's doing takeout, and you can't do that. So what do you do? Where are you? And so it's really nice to see that this was thought of, and that people like me and people in venues, which are basically like almost my bosses, the people that would hire us, hire the band, being able to be helped so that they are still around next year, so we can have an amazing 2021. That's
what I'm looking forward to.
That's what I'm looking forward to. So.
Renaissance.
Yep. As good as, all of this other stuff that we talked about, how we have changed, we've gone virtual, we've gone live stream, as wonderful as all of this stuff is, it still doesn't replace being there, putting a concert on in front of people. So I'm excited about that, and we will see what 2021
Me
holds.
too.
All right. Any parting words, my co-host Steez and special guest Steez?
My parting words are that I don't have a single thought in my head right now. I thought
Maybe that's a good thing.
like I had
that might be a good
sometimes
thing.
words.
That's a good place to be in.
I
If you
had
don't have a single thought, maybe you're at
serious-
peace, which I wish that for everybody.
I am at peace. I am at peace, and I am very
There we go.
thankful.
But
Thank you both for allowing me to speak my truth and allowing me to be able to be myself on this lovely podcast
Yes.
this evening.
Yes. And if you guys want Bri back, let us know. We'd love to bring
of
her
course
back.
we want her
And
back.
I want to be back.
there you go. Also, if you guys want to be on, I'm looking for guests. We're already booking out into April. it's nuts.
Exciting.
Well,
So
book
very
me out into June.
very crazy. But we have a lot of fun with this, and I love doing it. And we've got some big guests coming on throughout the year coming up that are going to be from all walks of the music industry. I'm pretty excited about this. We are going to bring in venue
That's
owners. We're
awesome.
going to bring in booking agents. I'm going to bring in people that host the open mics and open jams here.
Oh, I have so many people that
I'm going to bring in all those
refer
people.
them.
I'm going to bring in
I will refer people.
entertainment
I have to refer
lawyers.
faces.
I'm going to bring in a guy that loves his vinyl collection. We've got so much stuff to do. We're going to keep going at it and keep bringing you hopefully the best podcasts that you guys can enjoy, put on, rock and roll to, watch. I don't care what you do. But we will see you guys actually real quick. Special programming note. We will be back on Monday the 28th, which is
Yes,
next
we will
week.
for a very special edition. I
Do have a special edition. So
We do.
I have. We will be cooking glog. It is
It's so
Viking
good.
hot mulled wine
It's so good.
drink.
Can I drink
that
some glog?
We are going to be doing that live on the
glog or
podcast. Glog.
Glog
Glog.
with a G.
Oh, can
Yes.
I drink some glog?
Yes, so we are going to be doing that.
Yes.
Everybody get ready, gather your beer, drinks, wines, shots, whatever you're doing at home. We're going to be doing this virtually, but you will see us in the kitchen cooking stuff up, and we'll show you how to make it. And of course, we will still be we're actually going to be doing a countdown. We're going to be doing the countdown, both me and Julie. I'm going to be doing the best things that have happened in this past year. We're going to be counting that down. Julie, you're going to be counting down some of the biggest, most impactful
Moments in music history
in
ever.
music history
Yep.
ever. So be part of that sign on. So next Monday, the 28th, I believe, at
Yes,
8
ma'am.
p.m., we'll see you rock stars there. Make sure you join us and be part of the shenanigans and the
Can I just say one more
getting
thing?
drunk.
You guys are making music history.
We're trying. We're trying.
You
I do
are.
my damnedest, but
You both are making music history by making this podcast and being as thorough as you guys are and making people like me feel like they have hope.
There you
And
go.
that is a very beautiful thing. So you are a part of the history. You guys are making history. And
Awesome.
someday, maybe,
Someday, Lizzie
somebody
Hale will
be
be
talking about your
listening,
podcast.
and then she'll be like, "Podcast takeover, Lizzie Hale. You are welcome to."
Yes.
hint, hint. But yes,
I believe
yes.
in the law of attraction. If you say it out loud in the universe,
Yeah.
it'll come back to you. And real quick, I always told myself when I was leaving Atlanta, I was going to live there someday. And so now I live in Atlanta. And
There you
so
go.
I have the same philosophy. I'm going to sing in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium someday. And I am betting on it. And so I am going to put that same attraction out there into the universe. You guys are making music history.
Awesome.
And it'll come back to y'all.
so are you. We
Making
all are.
music history
I was
in the
gonna say,
present,
we're
right
all
here, right
working
now.
it, man. We are all working
Every
it.
angle we can.
Yes. Thank you again for allowing me to be on this podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It is such an honor.
We love having you.
Thank you so much again, Bri Foxx.
Yeah!
That's right. That's what I was waiting for. All right, that's going to round the night out. This was awesome. Thank you guys so much. And of course,
As we always say, be good to yourselves, be good to each other.
and we'll see you rock stars at the top.
We will.
Good night.